With Zohran Mamdani's tremendous win in New York in the Democratic primary, it's become the news, and this guy's profile is skyrocketing. And now, Rep. Andy Ogles is saying he should be denaturalized, stripped of his citizenship, and deported. Because it appears that before he attained citizenship, he had expressed sympathies for Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. Now, it's an interesting, albeit aggressive maneuver, but there is a question about when we actually plan to enforce the laws we have codified in the United States about, well, quite literally, you're not allowed to support terrorist groups or certain, adversaries of the United States when you're applying for citizenship. That is in the law, but we typically never go near that because it seems a bit, aggressive. But this is just the beginning. Democrats at the national level are said to be freaking out. Axios has this whole report about how they're melting down over the victory of a Democratic socialist in New York. Certainly, this man's victory has sent shockwaves across this country. And, oh boy, it'll be interesting. So we do have a bunch of other stories. We've got an alleged Iranian sniper sleeper agent arrested. This story seemed to go under the radar because of the Iranian strikes. We also have Australia deploying troops into Ukraine. Everybody seemed to miss that. So, interesting to say the least. So we'll talk about that and what's going on. Before we get started, we got a great sponsor. It's everybody's favorite, MyPillow. Go to mypillow.com/Tim. Use promo code Tim, and you can not only buy pillows. Do you think that's all Mike Lindell has in store for you? He's got the MyPillow mattress, the mattress topper. He's got Giza Dream bed sheets. Got towel sets, and I'm gonna go heavy on endorsing this Rev 7 energy drink they sell. Because we actually have a ton of this, and I just ordered I ordered 30 cases of it. It is a caffeine-free, sugar-free energy drink, and it's ketone powered, so it's no sugar. Not only do they taste really, really good, it's kind of wild because there's no caffeine, but it works. It works. I'm a big fan of that. So head over to mypillow.com and use promo code Tim when you purchase all the goods. Mike Lindell put a lot on the line for everything that he believed in, for Trump, for the movement. Tremendous respect. They try to take it all away from him, but we are here and he's sponsoring our show. We do appreciate it. And my friends, we got big news. We've got at the DCComedyLoft.com, The Culture War Live, Saturday, July 26th, August 2nd, and August 9th. Tickets are now available. They're all at 3 p.m. These are live tapings of the Culture War show. August 2nd, so the only one we can announce formally as of now because of confirmations is August 2nd will be Michael Malice and Angry Cops having the cop debate. Malice, of course, anti-cop. Angry Cops, of course, a literal cop. And they're both really funny guys. So this is probably going to be the wildest and funniest show. It's 2 hours. It's 3 to 5 in D.C. Tickets are available. I believe they're $30. However, if you go to timcast.com and you are a member of our Discord server, there are reserved tickets for free. So for all of our existing members, make sure you grab them up now. I think we have 30 designated tickets for our members, and we're going to have special, we have something special planned for our elite members as well. But if you go to timcast.com, you can get tickets to the event. And if you're not a member, you can become one, or you can just buy tickets. So don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with literally everyone you know, even your baby child who's sitting there in the crib and can't speak yet. Just say, we're going to watch Timcast IRL, and we'll try to keep it family friendly. But again, smash that like button, share the show. Joining us tonight to talk about this and everything more, we got Billy Binion.
Thanks for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
So I'm a reporter at Reason, a libertarian magazine. Usually write about civil liberties, criminal justice, government accountability, a lot of legal issues. Happy to be here.
Right on. Thanks for joining us. Mary is here tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Morgan. I co-host Pop Culture Crisis here at Timcast, and I'm glad to be back.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's a story from the Post-Millennial. Rep. Andy Ogles calls for investigation into Zohran Mamdani's naturalization over potential support for terrorism. He calls for an investigation over potential willful misrepresentation or concealment of material support for terrorism. This is pretty wild. So we've got this, Libs of TikTok says, holy crap, calling for the denaturalization and deportation of Democrat mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani, writing, Dear Attorney General Bondi, I write to request that the Department of Justice open an investigation into whether Zohran Mamdani, who he called Little Muhammad, by the way, currently a candidate for mayor of New York City, should be subject to denaturalization proceedings under 8 U.S.C. 1451A on the grounds that he may have procured U.S. citizenship through willful misrepresentation or concealment of material support for terrorism. According to public reports on including a June 21st, 2025 New York Post article, Mr. Mamdani expressed open solidarity with individuals convicted of terrorism-related offense prior to becoming a U.S. citizen. Specifically, he rapped, quote, "Free the Holy Land 5 / my guys." The Holy Land Foundation was convicted in 2008 of providing material support to Hamas, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Publicly praising the foundation's convicted leadership as my guys raises serious concerns about whether Mr. Mamdani held affiliations or sympathies he failed to disclose during the naturalization process. While I understand that some may raise First Amendment concerns about taking legal action based on expressive conduct, such as rap lyrics, speech alone does not preclude accountability where it reasonably suggests underlying conduct relevant to eligibility for naturalization. If an individual publicly glorifies a group convicted of financing terrorism, it is entirely appropriate for federal authorities to inquire whether the individual engaged in non-public forms of support, such as organizational affiliation, fundraising, or advocacy, that would have required disclosure on Form N-400 or during a naturalization interview. Moreover, Mr. Mamdani has recently refused opportunities to reject pro-terrorist rallying cry to globalize the Intifada, a call to expand violent attacks on civilians to the United States and around the world. While political speech in isolation is not dispositive, in light of earlier expressions of admiration for individuals convicted of supporting terrorism, a troubling pattern emerges that warrants formal scrutiny. The naturalization process depends on the good faith disclosure or any affiliation with support for groups that threaten U.S. national security. If Mamdani concealed relevant associations, that concealment may constitute material misrepresentation sufficient to support denaturalization under federal law. The federal government must uphold public trust by ensuring that citizenship is not granted under false pretenses. I respectfully urge the Department of Justice to determine whether Mr. Mamdani's conduct prior to naturalization warrants formal review under applicable law. And I'll say it first, I'm for it. Investigate him. 100%.
The investigation, I don't have any problem with.
Exactly.
The idea of, well, look, the further to the extremes you go when you're discussing, when it comes to political speech, the further to the extremes you go when you, according to your ideology, the more likely you are to engage in violent rhetoric. And Mamdani does walk the line. Anyone that says globalize the Intifada, they're at least skirting the line of
I'm not trying to be
speech,
contrarian, but it was just that he failed to denounce something or other. Like, it was other people chanting that, and they said that he didn't denounce it, which I think is a weird
Did he say
game
he didn't
that
say
people
that?
play where they say, like, why didn't you denounce
Well,
murder? Like, why didn't you condemn Hamas? Like,
it's a little more than that.
the condemnation is kind of just implicit, no matter what.
He was asked in an interview what he thought about phrases like globalize the Intifada. And he said, well, you know, it means different things to different people. And some people think it means like a peaceful revolution. So
Yeah, see, but even that's skirting, that's trying to be deceptive, that's not trying to be fulsome, that's not actually addressing the concern that people have when they ask that question. He's trying to skirt the issue. He's trying to not.
I mean, he's a politician now, but I would just say I hate this stuff. I absolutely hate it. I think for a couple of reasons. For one, I think there is a real First Amendment issue with denaturalizing someone because we don't like what they say. I mean, saying my love to you guys, I don't really know that he thought that much about it. It was in a rap video, and I also hate it because I think that these kind of stunts, for one, it's not going to be successful, and for two, it's going to galvanize his supporters. And I think there are a lot of reasons to really dislike this mayoral candidate. I mean, he's anathema to a lot of the things I stand for. But, you know, Nancy Mace is already out here taking a poll on her X profile saying, you know, implying that she thinks that it's a decent proposal, and I think it ends up making a martyr out of him, and I think that's very unwise. Going back to my first point, though, I think if the right wants to claim to stand for free speech, they have to also stand for speech that is really unsavory. That is the point of the First Amendment, and that's the point of a principle. If you don't apply it when it's inconvenient, then it doesn't matter. It's not a principle.
Well, so there's two things.
Was that on her personal profile? Just sorry, real quick. I want to put
I think that the one where she's wearing the pink dress. So yeah, that would be her civilian profile. Should we? She's taking a poll right now for her followers.
So there's two things about this that I want to at least make a comment about. First of all, the guy that's actually been talking about denaturalizing and deporting him, he's calling him Little Muhammad, and that actually that kind of hurts the argument because then it seems
Why
like
is he calling him that?
Pardon me?
Is he calling him
He's
that?
Muslim.
Yeah, because he's
Just
Muslim.
because he's Muslim?
Yeah. So and whatever your opinion on that kind of rhetoric, you're going to galvanize the people against you. They're going to call him a racist. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be saying
With
that.
a nickname like that,
I don't know.
He thinks that he's doing the Trump thing, and he's not doing.
I think he
Trump
wants
thing.
followers
It's
on
not
social
landing.
media. He wants followers on social media. That's what
Maybe,
this is for.
or he's trying to get. Well, I think the city in the U.S. with the largest Jewish population is New York.
Yeah, it
and
is.
so that kind of branding, when that story drops and they say Rep. Ogles is a racist for calling him Little Muhammad, that's gonna penetrate deeper into communities in New York, especially Jewish communities, which I think the intention is to try and get them to come out and vote against them.
Sure, and I will say I disagree with this guy's what I know of this guy's stance towards the pro-Israel Palestine discussion, but I don't know. Like I said, I really do feel like this ends up backfiring, and I mean, what's the point?
I disagree.
And I'll say this: the mayoral election, a local election. I know New York City is an enormous place, but it becoming a referendum on foreign policy doesn't really make sense to me. I understand Jewish voters wanting to at least have knowledge vote of someone that they, whose character they like. But the mayor of New York has no say on foreign policy. It seems almost kind of silly that we're as a nation, we're looking to him to be a thought leader on this when we should be talking about, how he's going to lead New York City, which there are plenty of things he's going to do to New York City that are really bad.
I don't think anybody has any expectation of him engaging in foreign policy. I think the
It's
argument
interesting
is
because a lot of the rhetoric that he's using on social media and on his campaign website is talking about issues that go and reach far beyond the city, even though he knows that there's no possibility of follow through on that.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be a candidate that stands up to Trump. That doesn't mean anything. You're running for mayor.
Yeah. Well,
like, it's an important city, but
no, it does. It does mean something when he says that they're going to obstruct immigration enforcement and obstruct
that
federal
is
law.
one thing he said. Like, we want to make this into a sanctuary city for immigrants, and also he said that he wanted it to be an LGBTQ sanctuary city,
which literally just means so that if you're underage and can get to New York City, they will perform all kinds of gender mutilation on you.
So here's a question for you guys. Here's Nancy Mace's poll. Should Zohran Mamdani be denaturalized and deported? Yes, no, not sure. What do you think won? Which one do you think is winning? I think yes.
Yes.
I see Nancy Mace's audience, so I think yes, but I would vote no if I could.
All right. So what's the votes in the room? You say no. What do you say, Mary?
I already voted yes.
Okay, you voted yes.
Yeah.
What say you, Phil?
Yes, for being a communist, not for anything else. Oh, literally, only because of his ideology.
Yes.
I don't care.
I voted yes because he's not American and has no right to be here.
Well, he is American because he's a
naturalized.
citizen.
Yeah, he's a citizen.
Yeah, I just don't believe that he is meaningfully American more than someone who was.
I reject the
And whose
idea that
parents
the
are
only way you can be American is by being born here. I
reject that too.
All of us, we won the geographic lottery. I like what America stands for, but I think there's something
Well, it's
powerful
not really a
about.
lottery because
We didn't do anything by being born here.
Yeah, so
don't
we
think
didn't earn it.
Right,
don't think-
exactly.
okay,
Right, so I should.
These people chose to come here, and that should be celebrated.
You're acting like
And
like
so-
your soul is like a die that gets rolled into the universe, and that's not actually how that works. It's not a lottery because your ancestors actually did make the effort to come here. They did make the effort to build lives here for generations, and you are the result of that. There's nothing random about it.
Well, but it wasn't my agency, and so I'm saying I think I'm an American, and I like America, and like I said, what it stands for. But I think there is something powerful about, there's been a lot of talk right now that America, or that New York City specifically, has a big foreign-born population, which I'll make a couple of points. For one, that's not new. I mean, Ellis Island, it has always represented, kind of this melting pot and a promise of opportunity, and I think that is a good thing.
Okay,
and
I
so
would
if
prefer
someone
not to conflate immigration
Now, hold on.
1965 with post.
Right. Now, this is important though. No one here did anything to earn what this country was.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's why I deserve your stuff when you die, not your children. Your children should get nothing from you. The state should seize everything you built in your life, and I get to have it.
Do you believe that?
You do.
No, I don't.
You certainly. You just argue that people who aren't from here can have all the stuff that the Americans built.
That's not at all what I argue.
So if like my dad builds a baseball field and then someone comes and they're not from here, I should have no right to the commons that my family and ancestors built because we didn't earn it. We were just born here.
I'm talking specifically about people who come here. I mean, there's a
Like who built the Brooklyn Bridge?
I mean, I am not, but I wouldn't take credit for it.
I think it was the Brooklyn Bridge Corporation.
I mean, to me, that's an analogy that doesn't really work. All I am saying.
Yeah, why do you get to keep your stuff? Why can't I have it?
I mean, I'm not saying that family means nothing. My argument is not that family is worthless. What I am saying, though, is that there are some people who are Americans by choice, and that is a powerful thing. They came here because of what America stands for.
Do you think that Mamdani came here because of what America stands for? Because I don't think
7 years old.
So so he's not an American by choice then. He's an American because his family came.
Parents, yeah.
This is a deception. He was raised with completely different values because of the culture from which he came.
And
He's not meaningfully American.
That I agree with that.
There's nothing about him.
This is something that I actually said last night. Like the idea that everybody that comes to America is all the same, every immigrant is exactly the same, and it's totally not true. And I think that the United States should be able to deport people or at least exclude people that don't embrace the values that make the United States the country that it is, which includes property rights, it includes things like liberty and stuff like that. So
here's a question I have. We'll start slow with it. Do you believe that if you, let's say you build a house and you own the land, when you die, should it go to your children or whoever you choose in your will?
Yes.
What is the meaningful distinction between that and a society handing down what it's built to its own children?
I think that there is something to be said for families handing down a society to their own children, but I don't think that necessarily excludes everyone else from it, because they build things too. They come and add to it. They don't just take. The idea that immigrants come and only take, they also build. Your analysis, I understand where you're coming from, but it's a static analysis. The way I look at the world is more dynamic.
What percentage are they entitled to?
Say again?
What percentage are they entitled to? 100%? So
what do you mean of entitled to what? Entitled to public services, entitled to welfare? I mean, I'm a libertarian. So I would like to slash a lot of these programs that, people criticize.
Well, then let's try it like this. You're 400 years ago, your ancestor comes and stakes a plot of land. It's got a river going through it, and then builds up a big property on it and says, with my hard work, my kids will have a better life. And after several generations, dozens of generations, here you are inheriting that land. What percentage of your land should be shared with someone who came here for the first time 7 years ago?
Well, we're talking about private property. So if that person wants
What's the distinction?
I mean, I'm not saying that an immigrant can come and invade the space you have that you bought and is yours.
Well, the reason I asked you this because you said you were a libertarian, so my assumption is you prefer privatization over public property, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you had private property, then what percentage of that must you share with someone who just showed up and is on your property?
Private property? You don't have to share any of it.
Okay, so why then should we as a nation, which the distinction is a collective group has determined where our borders and boundaries are, and it is private among our country, should we be obligated to share it with anybody else?
I mean, the distinction between private or public, or you said private among our country? I mean, there are some spaces that...
there's jurisdiction, right?
Right, but that doesn't...
When you say private, what you're saying is it's land controlled by you as a private entity or individual.
Right, but I'm not entitled to the entire country. I'm entitled... I just bought a house, for instance.
Indeed. So
I'm entitled to my house.
Understood.
Someone cannot come into my house.
Here's the point. A country has its own jurisdictions for which the country controls, yes?
By voters, yes.
Well, depending on the structure of your government. Right. Some might be communist, I guess. Some could be monarchy.
We're talking about America.
So why should Americans have to share anything with non-citizens who came here now?
You don't have to share your private property.
Okay, I think you're misunderstanding. Okay?
Oh, no, I'm understanding. I'm not trying to be offensive.
The American people created the country, established its boundaries, sacrificed blood and treasure to acquire the land and establish what is the American people's property as a public commonwealth.
So I'll stop you right there. That is the fundamental difference that we have. I do not feel entitled to everything that came before me. I feel entitled to what I just bought because it was my blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm paying my mortgage.
Okay, so let's go from that point.
Okay.
At what point must you personally, under your own beliefs, give away what your ancestors built? Is it your dad? Your dad built a farm. Should you have to give it to someone who just showed up or share it with them?
No, but that is that's because it's a private farm.
But you're not entitled to the things that came before you. Where's the gradient? Where's the line? Is it if your great-grandfather made it, you have to share it with an immigrant?
Well, we're not sharing private property, Tim.
Well, at a certain point, it becomes the public commons. There's too many people, right?
No, this is the fundamental basic distinction between private and public property.
What is it?
Private is, I'm a big fan of property rights.
What's the distinction?
I mean, what I own, what I paid for. I mean, like,
No. You didn't pay for what your great-grandfather made. Why do you get to have that? You didn't earn it.
sure, but it was purchased via. It's not owned by the government.
No, he stole it from Native Americans.
I mean, that's a whole different discussion.
So let's say several hundred years ago, your great-great-grandfather or great-great-great-grandfather conquered land by force, massacring a family, whatever it might have been. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he traded some beads for it. I don't know. But now we're several generations on. You never paid for it. You just inherit it. And you're like, it's private property because someone handed me a piece of paper because they put a flag in it. Why can't a guy from Honduras just come and go, yeah, well, you didn't earn it. It's mine now.
I mean, because as a society, we have decided that there's a distinction between private and public property.
Completely agreed. As a society, I think we should determine that Zohran Mamdani should be denaturalized and deported because the American founders built this country and we have no requirement to share it with anybody. Just like you've decided your line is simply my personal family, I believe as the American country is an organized entity. So the only distinction is what we think we are owed or claim to.
Sure, and I just don't feel entitled to the entire country. I mean, and like I said, I think there is common ground to be had here in the sense that, like, America stands for a lot of beautiful things. It stands for freedom of expression. It stands for property rights, what we're talking about. It stands for a lot of things that make us exceptional. I would not call myself a nationalist, but I would say I'm an American exceptionalist. I believe we're better than most everyone. I mean, you look at stuff that's even happening in like the UK and Germany getting arrested over Facebook posts. I understand why people want to come here. I think it's beautiful that some people are Americans by choice, and I don't think that makes them any less American.
When they vote against the interests of the American people, we have a problem.
And when they, on net, steal from the American people. And I would like to add, it's not by a consensus that all of society has just collectively decided what a border is and what private property is. The border of the walls around your house or the border of like your actual skin barrier or the fence surrounding your backyard, it's only defined by your willingness to kill someone who violates that line, who crosses that line.
Sure, but
it's not by consensus that all of society has decided.
I'm not saying we need to have open borders. I'm just saying it's beautiful that some people, I mean, people will have lots of disagreements on immigration policy. But I'm just saying it's beautiful that some people come here because they want to, and because we stand for amazing things. I mean, do you think we should literally have zero immigration?
Yes.
No one should be allowed in?
People come here to benefit from being here personally and send money back home. They don't care about American values.
Now, she's got a great point because nowadays, most of the people that are coming to America are not coming because they have American values.
The majority of naturalized citizens in 2024 voted for Trump. It's 10% of the electorate that went for Trump plus one.
Just because they voted for Trump doesn't mean that they have American values.
Closer to the values that you guys are talking about.
It's by no mistake what you consider to be American values anyway, because those values were held by Christian Europeans who moved here. You can't just ship anyone here and expect them to uphold those values.
There are I mean, you look at like Cuban.
So, like, what do we do when Zohran Mamdani? Let me do this. Let's jump to the next title, and then we'll keep it going. We have this from Axios. Democratic establishment melts down over Mamdani's win in New York. The threat is a socialist who is defeating the establishment Democrat Cuomo. We're going to see more of this affecting the rest of the country. Now, I wanted to start off with this, but I do kind of have just a continuing point from the last segment, and that is right now, one of Zohran's policies is that he will defy federal law enforcement intentionally and by force. I would call that sedition, and I would call that more than beyond the opposing the interests of America. I would call it a declaration of war. A foreign-born individual comes to this country and then literally campaigns on, if you are here illegally in violation of this country's laws, just know we will use force to stop the United States and the people of the United States from coming after you. I mean,
are you referring to what he said about keeping ICE out of?
Yes. Yeah. And saying we will. He said we're going to keep our families here and not let Trump come in and take them away. He's basically saying there is a structure of government that has agreed upon rules and laws. You, my friends, have come here in violation of the laws and the will of the American people, and by God, I will use force to stop them from harming you, and we will defeat them. Yeah, I would call that an invasion.
This is also a foreigner who's trying to seize American-owned businesses with his plan for privately owned grocery stores to basically get repossessed by the municipal government to
Is he
freeze
seizing
prices.
businesses, or is he just making? I mean, I think the government-owned grocery store thing is crazy, and I was tweeting about it.
Well,
I think you shared my thing about the.
Okay, maybe
a
I'm
little-
phrasing it a little bit melodramatically, but yes, that is basically what he said. He wants
He wants to
grocery
create.
stores that
Basically,
exist already,
he wants to
privately
create
owned.
government-run grocery stores, which.
I don't think he wants to create them. He wants to take the ones that are privately owned currently and make them publicly owned.
Well, he said create a network of city-run grocery stores.
Right. He wants, I think, the first proposal was 5. I don't think he's going to be seizing Kroger or something.
He may as well just come out and say, I am not from your country. I have been a citizen for 7 years. I will use force if necessary to protect those who illegally entered your country in violation of your laws, and I will enact policies that destroy your local economy.
I mean, it has to make sense for people to say, all right, this guy has, like Tim said, he's only been here for 7 years.
No, he's been there longer. He's an American
only been
citizen.
a citizen for 7 years, and he is going to, to facilitate illegal immigrants coming into the country. He's going to provide them with benefits from the government.
I'm sorry. He's going to facilitate criminal activity in the United States.
He's going to facilitate criminal activity. He's going to provide them with state benefits from New York State. He's going to inhibit the federal government from enforcing the law. I understand that, people are like, oh, we're a democracy and blah, blah, blah. This is not about democracy. This is expropriating the property of American citizens on behalf of criminal aliens here. This can't be acceptable by the American
He's basically saying, through force, we will take your land, give up. And we have a couple options. We can say, sure, let him do it. Let him protect more illegal immigrants who come in and in violation of the laws of this land and its people. So our laws mean nothing. And then we'll sit back and just watch as he does.
I mean, I think there are plenty of issues to take. I mean, this is actually a policy debate. So that's, I mean,
I completely disagree.
I would like to restate
I'm saying
clearly and
this-
strongly that this is about way more than policy, and that reminds me.
I'd say that
of
as,
something I
policy
posted
is what
earlier
votes
today,
should be based on. So I'm saying that as a good thing. I'm saying that.
I don't think it's.
I was drawing a comparison between Zohran Mamdani and Vivek Ramaswamy because they have diametrically opposed policy views, but rub people exactly the same wrong way because they are foreign strivers with a chip on their shoulder who don't understand this culture and want to tell us as Americans what an expression of American values is. They have no place with that temerity.
Wasn't Vivek born here?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he was born in Ohio.
It doesn't really matter because he was raised with different values.
It's a bit different.
He was raised with different values.
To your point, I have so many friends who have values that are so different than mine, and I don't want to kick them out of the country. I want to convince them that my values are better. That's what you should be doing.
Sure. Let's pause because I agree on that.
Spread
but this is not the debate with Zohran. The debate with Zohran is 10+ million people over 4 years entered our country in violation of our laws, and we have these laws in place for a reason. They have committed a crime against us. And Zohran says, don't worry, I will use law enforcement apparatus to stop the people of the United States from enforcing their laws. So I call that an invasion.
I mean, I think that you can call it an invasion, but I mean, I think words have meaning, and I wouldn't say it's an invasion. I mean, I agree that we have to have law and order, and I don't agree that this guy stands for it. But I think when we use words like invasion or incursion or whatever, the vast majority, of course, some immigrants who come here do not have America's best interests at heart. But a lot of people are coming for economic opportunity. They don't have good opportunity in Mexico.
Selfish.
Well, to be honest, if I clubbed you over the head and took your wallet, it's because I wanted an economic opportunity. We don't tolerate that. When they enter our country illegally for an opportunity, and then Gen Z can't afford to buy a house, and they're living 3 people in a bachelor apartment, I got a problem with that. And that's in New York City. This guy comes around, whispers sweet nothings into the ears of all the dumb young communists who don't realize he's the one burning the city down and making sure that their lives will never improve. So I say the DOJ, so should he win, because we don't know if he actually wins. There could be a coalition victory if
Eric Adams is still going to run, right?
Yeah, if Sleewood drops out, Cuomo's already announced he's going to be dropping out. If they endorse Adams, maybe Adams wins. If this man does win, and he does actually take even the tiniest millimeter step towards obstructing ICE, the DOJ should bring sedition charges against him and remove him from government in New York City and occupy the city if they have to.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the charges should be. I don't know if it's actually sedition or not, but there should be charges for preventing the federal government from carrying out.
This is an issue of weakness, weak will, weak spine. When a man who is foreign-born publicly declares he will do everything he can to protect people who have illegally entered your country from another, and he will violate federal law to do so, we have two options. Let them keep doing it and give up, or say, listen, let me pause. I personally am not calling for anything other than what the law already says.
I don't think that there would be a criminal charge that applies.
Sedition.
I don't think that would be applicable under criminal law.
Why not?
Because there's a distinction between federal law and local law and state law. I mean, you can say it's immoral, or you could say it's wrong, but I guarantee you there's no way to bring sedition charges against him. I will also just say one thing. I was in New York City last night for work, and I was, perfect timing, and I was talking to people who voted. We chatted about this a little bit before we started filming, and two of the people I talked to did rank him number one, I think. And I think people, and neither of them I would describe, one of them is definitely not a Democrat, and the other one I would not describe as a staunch Democrat, certainly not a socialist. And I think people really underestimate how many people, the reaction to Cuomo, and how much they disliked Cuomo, and how much they didn't want to see that again. I think a lot of this was an anti-Cuomo sentiment. I don't necessarily think it's a pro-Mamdani sentiment. And I will also say about Cuomo, it really, really bothers me that so many people see the final nail in his coffin as the sexual harassment scandal, which I'm not saying sexual harassment is ever okay. But the fact of the matter is this is a person whose policies helped kill a bunch of old people. And then he lied, altered data, lied to the taxpayer, and went on TV and said, unironically, that incompetent government kills people and that people value the truth.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think one could describe obstructing ICE officers from engaging in a deportation? Would that be aiding and abetting the illegal immigrant?
I do not believe so under current criminal law. I mean, I'm not an attorney.
So let's try this. There is a guy, and the police are like, we are going to deport him right now, and so you physically obstruct the police.
Physical obstruction is a crime. Yes, that would be a crime.
So that would be like aiding and abetting.
I don't know what the exact term would be.
You're aiding in the escape of an illegal immigrant.
It would. Yes, it's like the judge who got arrested in Wisconsin under federal charges.
So when we're looking at the law, it's important to understand that it's all interpretable. The First Amendment says we have a right. The government, Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of speech. Yet blasphemy laws were in this country for 100 plus years.
Yeah,
right?
And I think that's stupid.
But they enforced it.
But I don't agree with it.
Sure.
And the First Amendment would also disagree with it.
But the point was they enforced it despite the First Amendment being in place because how judges interpreted the law mattered. For instance, they're trying to charge these kids in Georgia with a hate crime because
Which is terrible.
But they can interpret it as they want.
Right. I mean, I think all hate crime charges need to go because we need to prosecute bad acts, not ideas.
So Title 8 USC 1324A makes it a crime to aid and abet, to induce or entice illegal immigration. If you are a public official that is outright saying, we will do everything in our power to make sure if you are here illegally, you can stay, and we will stop ICE, you are inducing and you are abetting. And that's a crime. Now, if you want to add on top of it sedition, right, which is actions to undermine the authority of the United States, we could argue that a public official in the biggest city in the country outright saying we will defy the federal law and make sure the will of the American people be damned to protect you who came here illegally, I say you got a sedition case.
I mean, you can say it, but I don't think anyone would bring it.
Well, because they're cowards.
I just don't think that's that's technically just not how the law is usually applied. I mean, politicians...
I don't care how it's usually applied. I care that we had 10 plus million illegal immigrants come into this country, spitting in the faces of the younger generation who can't afford houses and can't find work. And now you've got mayoral candidates that are basically saying, we will entrench this and the American people's will be damned. Let me just stress that again. Zohran Mamdani's official public position is the laws of this country and the will of the American voter that elected Donald Trump are shit to him. And he will do whatever he can to make sure the people who broke those laws and spat in the face of Americans are protected. Now, the problem is Republicans are cowards and jellyfish who won't actually enforce the law as it was written and codified for these reasons. Tom Homan's great, but I got to say as well, when Brad Lander physically attacked cops and they arrested him, they didn't bring any charges against him. That's the problem with Republicans. The Trump DOJ said this guy intentionally obstructed ICE proceedings and actually physically resisted arrest and fought with cops. Oh, well, let him go. And you know what? So be it. So don't be surprised if whatever the Constitution says about your belief in the First Amendment becomes nothing, because these people certainly don't agree with your view.
I get it.
You'll have blasphemy laws in 2 seconds.
I will stand up for everyone's right to say things that I find extremely unsavory. It is what I love about the First Amendment. That does not protect popular speech. It protects unpopular speech. Because popular speech and popular people don't usually need protection. And so I think it necessarily requires defending things like burning the flag, burning the American flag. That is your First Amendment protected right. You can think it's disgusting. You can think it's repulsive.
It's not if it's a pride flag, though.
Look, when it comes to...
If you steal someone else's flag and burn it, but you can burn your own pride flag.
Not if you ride your scooter over a...
Yeah, and I wrote about that, and I thought that case was insane. And
So let's just recognize that you take the position of let them trample over me.
No, I take the position of people can have terrible speech, and it is their right to have terrible speech. And I can criticize them for it, but I don't want the government knocking at their door.
So basically, here's what's happening. You've got ideological groups beating you over the head with a club, and you're saying, well, they shouldn't. That's it. I think,
What do you suggest I do?
About what?
You're saying they're beating me over the head. It's true. A lot of people hate what I stand for, and that's their right to hate it. But
I agree with the stealing someone else's flag, but the hate crime charge is the principle.
That's insane. I think all hate crimes need to go because we need to prosecute acts, not ideas.
Agreed. Yes. But your position tends to be, I will defend, you're going to offer up to them the ability to do what they're doing and not resist it.
Liberalism is...
I'm only resisting it.
You're not resisting it.
I'm only resisting the government coming and prosecuting them or retaliating against them for their expression. You and I can talk about how terrible it is. For the people who aren't familiar, the case you were referring to was somewhere in the Pacific Northwest where a bunch of teenagers did wheelies or where?
Oh, there's two. They did wheelies
on a mural on the ground.
But the big story right now is in Atlanta. There was a pride crosswalk, and they ripped flags down from a gay bar, went onto the crosswalk and cut them up with knives, and then scooted off.
Right. Hate crime charges for that are insane. Honestly, any charge. You don't have a right to take someone else's property and deface it.
My point is, when you are basically saying so right now we have a guy who may very well become mayor, outright saying your laws don't apply to me, but my laws apply to you, and you're going okay.
I'm not saying okay. I think what you're...
All right, so let's investigate him and remove him.
If you want to try to change the law to...
Change what law? I don't need to. It exists already. 8 U.S.C. 1324 makes it illegal to do what he's proposed to do.
And you think that you're going to be able to arrest and deport him over that?
I didn't say I'm not saying deport. I'm saying criminal charges and sedition, if applicable. So I believe that in the event he becomes mayor, if he intentionally obstructs ICE in any way through his orders, commands, law enforcement, or dismantling of the NYPD and creating a socialist social worker organization, the DOJ under Bondi or whoever should bring about charges under 8 U.S.C. 1324 for inducing, abetting, aiding, or encouraging illegal immigration.
I'm trying to speak carefully here just because I'm not an attorney. I write about a lot of criminal justice issues, but I don't claim to have gone to law school. There is a distinction between literally physically obstructing law enforcement and as a local official being I'm not going to help ICE. The latter is not a crime.
I am saying literally in the event he obstructs ICE, not that he stands back and does nothing.
Okay.
I don't care if he stands back and does nothing.
What is your vision of it? What is obstructing
He has
ICE
stated
look like?
he is going to stop families from being removed from New York, is what he described it as.
I guess I just don't even know what that looks like in practice.
Sure. How do you stop someone from getting
There's
deported
videos
by
of it
ICE?
from L.A.
You mean like? Did you talking about him physically? Like you?
Well, did you see them chest bumping the cop and screaming in his face?
I mean, that's just. I think
Maybe I shouldn't say chest.
performance.
Maybe I shouldn't say chest bumping, but he's standing up right at in a cop's face,
Cringe. It's
screaming. At him.
performance art. He's just trying to get attention.
So the point is, when he says he will stop the deportation or the kidnap, whatever words he used of families, the implication by stopping it from happening is obstruction of ICE. If he said, as mayor, I will step back and do literal nothing when ICE comes in to deport people, I'd say, okay. And do you think he would have won his election if he said that? No, he said, I'm going to stop it from happening.
Well, I think he won for a lot of reasons. For one, as I just said, people hating Cuomo. I think people also hear things like a $30 minimum wage and think that sounds good. I obviously very much disagree with that. But I don't think it's as simple as, just one issue or one thing.
Did you have something? We're going to move to the next story.
Well, I mean, no, we can go ahead.
All right, here's the story from Axios. Trump administration to deport Abrego Garcia again. All right, we call this Deportation Act 2. The Trump administration said it would send Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, to an unnamed third country as part of its renewed effort to deport him. I hope it's South Sudan. Multiple outlets reported on Thursday. The Trump administration has included deportations to non-origin countries in its immigration policy with permission from the Supreme Court. Abrego Garcia was returned to the U.S. earlier this month. The DOJ was ordered to release him from prison in Tennessee while he awaited trial. U.S. District Judge Waverly Crenshaw said on Wednesday that Abrego Garcia is likely to eventually be deported to El Salvador, where he's originally from. Let me just put it this way. We live in, how do I describe this? The absurdity of having to go through this circuitous, bureaucratic deportation process back and forth to America, back to El Salvador, to America, released from prison, charged with human trafficking, is psychotic. Why can't human beings just go, guys, we're just going to deport him and just cut through the whole thing? Where did we end up? They said, you can't deport him. He's got a withholding of deportation. Okay, but if he came back and got a hearing, he'd be deported. No, bring him back anyway. Okay, I guess we bring him back, and then he gets ordered to be deported again. What was the point of any of it? Why are we doing this?
Because we love bureaucracy.
Because the left doesn't want us to deport anybody.
Well, no, they're like, you're separating him from his family.
Because
And, they should just all leave at once.
I mean, well, look, the fact of the matter is, the left has taken the side of every single criminal that the Trump administration has tried to deport. Like, regardless of your opinion on legal immigration or whether we should, or dreamers or whatever, the left and Democrats have decided that they're going to treat every single actual criminal that the Trump administration wants to deport as if they are wrongly accused. And then as time passes, it just comes out that, no, they're not wrongly accused. They're actually criminals. And it just hardens the American people against the Democrats. So, in my opinion, more power to them.
They aren't even genuinely ignorant to the facts. I think they know.
Who?
The left. I think they know that someone like Abrego Garcia is guilty of what he's been accused of, and they actually don't care. They're going to lie and say that they're ignorant and that we don't know, we haven't looked into it. But they actually believe that people who were born in this country deserve to be brutalized by foreigners. They actually believe that we deserve that.
In practice,
and that's
at least.
Justice.
Can I
That's why they lie and say he's innocent. They know that he's not.
There's a way to find out if he's guilty, though, which is basic I mean, that's why we have due process. That's why due process exists.
Well, he got his due process. He got deported.
Well, he has not been deported yet.
No, he was deported at first. That was
a violation of due process because he didn't get it.
It was so there's two issues at play. The Alien Enemies Act, for which Stephen Miller argued that was superseding the withholding of deportation. But the order that he had under immigration law was that he was not to be deported back to El Salvador due to fear from
to that country specifically.
But it was over Guatemala. Barrios 18 in Guatemala. So he was ordered to leave, and he just didn't. So when the Alien Enemies Act thing kicked in, the White House made the argument that they had the authority to do it. The due process at that point was a legal challenge to the Alien Enemies Act, but that was separate from Abrego Garcia. So the action would be he gets deported under the original deportation order, and on top of it, then they would challenge the Alien Enemies Act, which I think they said, okay, got to bring him back now. But he'll just get deported if we do.
He will get deported again, but I do think there's something to be said for following the law. I mean, I am a believer in the rule of law, and I don't think you can apply it selectively. They did violate the law by, I mean, I guess they call it an administrative error. I don't want to assume malice. Perhaps
They
it
changed
was just,
their position.
Right. I mean, who knows what it was.
At first, I think the DHS said it was administrative error because basically what happened was he had this withholding of deportation, it's called. And then when they basically went through all the... So people got to understand how bureaucracy is broken. And what happens is an immigration court says withholding of deportation. At the same time, he already had an order of removal. They both existed at the exact same time. So he was supposed to leave, but we couldn't deport him to El Salvador. So when the DHS starts going through, let's go through the backlog of deportation orders, he gets grabbed in that same as everybody else. Then they go, we didn't realize there was this other order.
Right.
So it was an administrative error. However, Stephen Miller came out and said, no, we issued these deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, and that supersedes any kind of other order. You would need an order on top of that. So then the argument became the Alien Enemies Act challenged in the court, to which the Supreme Court said, no, you've got to bring him back. However, no one knew what they meant by facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, in which case they brought him back as what people wanted, and now he's immediately being sent back because we're all morons and we wasted our time for no reason.
But I would argue that the Trump administration has made a strategic blunder by sticking to cases like this because a lot of people wanted him in office because of immigration specifically. And I think by committing to these cases that, I mean, I know that you disagree with it resonating with a lot of people, but the fact of the matter is it does, and his immigration approval rating has declined. And if polling on this specific case...
he's not deporting enough.
Yeah.
That's why.
It's
mass deportations
when
are
polled
popular.
on the Abrego Garcia case specifically, a lot of the majority of people said, or the larger group said they disapproved of the way he handled it. And I actually think, I'm not exactly, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but more people disagreed than agreed. And I think that it is, like I said, it's a strategic error to have really committed to this. And, they spent months saying, we can't bring him back. They always could bring him back. And I think they should have just said, oops, we made a mistake. We'll bring him back. And
I think the intention actually was, let's let Democrats defend a human trafficker for as long as possible and then bring him back.
Well, we don't know if he was.
That strategy
he's not accused of
worked.
human trafficking. He's accused of
it wasn't Maryland.
smuggling.
Yeah, he is.
He's accused of smuggling, not trafficking.
What's
Criminal indictment.
So
was
you're
smuggling.
making a semantic argument.
What is
Well, no,
human
because
smuggling?
trafficking is like against someone's will. Smuggling is like you help
it's
them
not.
get across the border.
If we're speaking colloquially, trafficking is
I'm
like
speaking under the law.
right. So I'm speaking colloquially.
Right.
We call him a trafficker. He's trafficking in human lives.
That's not the criminal definition of trafficking. I'm just.
Well, either way, the
Just-
incentive
it's-
to not handle it the way that you suggested is clear. It's to allow the left to defend this man who is obviously a gang member and a criminal.
Well, and I think
that worked.
obsessing over Maryland man. A lot of people said Maryland man
But,
over and over
let's
and over.
not
again.
just focus on the violent criminals. Let's just get illegal workers out of here.
Yeah.
That's what people want, and it wouldn't gain any new.
I don't know
news
that everyone
attention.
wants
It
that.
wouldn't be in the news cycle, and yeah, it is popular. Mass deportations are popular.
So why is Trump?
That was a popular mandate.
Didn't Trump just back out of ICE going into slaughterhouses?
Okay.
is he-
I don't know.
is-
Some people
Fox
thought
News
that he
says
was
human
sticking by
trafficking
that
charges.
statement. Others thought that it was a throwaway comment.
Yeah, that's.
that was
I
out of
read the
context.
indictment. It's.
But either way, regardless of what Trump thinks, I'm talking about what he campaigned on and what people voted for him to do.
It's a distinction that I
he's
think a lot of
following
people don't
through.
realize is.
If anything, the approval rating on immigration is going down because he's not committing to what he promised. In terms of the actual numbers
I'm
of
sure there are some
deportations.
people who want to see
Meaning
more
interior
deportations. I don't disagree that those people exist, but I
Maybe
also
even more people than the number that voted for him.
I think the challenge is, I think the difference in ideology is like over the span of 30 years, when you bring in, let me try it like this. If I own a house and I invite a guy to come live there, and so I have roommates, but like the house has been in my family for generations, and then we decide, hey, like another guy wants to come and sleep on the couch, let's vote on it. And I say, well, look, this is my historic family home. I don't want people here. And he goes, well, I voted 50-50. So we'll need a tiebreaker. It's like, well, hold on. I would argue that the people you're referring to, American citizens, maybe even first generation, they're going to have sympathies towards illegal immigration. specifically because they're more likely to have family members who are legal
So actually,
immigrants.
there's interesting data on this. A lot of legal immigrants are extremely against illegal immigration because they feel like they didn't feel like it. They say they came here the right way. So a lot of people feel the exact opposite. They feel
Except when Reagan granted amnesty, and then California permanently became a Democrat state. Because what happened was a bunch of, I think it was 2.9 million illegal immigrants, and they were here illegally, were granted amnesty, and then that was in the 80s, of course. In the 90s, when they put forward a proposition that would take away public funds from illegal immigrants, the people who were granted amnesty had family members that were here illegally and getting public resources. So they all said, we can't allow that to happen. And from that point on, California has never voted Republican since.
I mean, it is interesting to think back on the fact that not long ago, California was like a deep red state.
Yes, and then they brought in 3 million illegal immigrants, gave them amnesty, and now it's a permanent Democrat state.
I think that's too simplistic. I think there are more reasons for why it has. I don't think every blue voter in California is a descendant of an immigrant per se.
No, I mean, the funny thing too is one thing I really love about this debate is the white nationalists, because I think, sorry guys, they're just like the dumbest group. Because they keep saying things like one stat that I saw going viral was that today, let me ask you guys, do you know what percentage of New York City is white?
No, I think it's like 30, 40%, something like that now.
What do you say?
40.
What do you think?
30 or 40, I'm not sure
What
exactly.
do you think?
That's white?
Yeah, the white population of New York.
40%?
29.
Including the Irish.
29%. And
Does anyone have a majority? No one has a majority then, right? It's just a bunch of different...
I think the white would still be the ethnic majority.
Okay.
Hispanic maybe at this point, or like Latino or whatever. But it's funny because I see these like white people sharing this and I'm like, dude, it's white people that are for the immigration. Like, what are you talking about? There's no, like, the white nationalists are like, oh, it's, non-white city. And I'm like, and it was white people that enacted those policies.
The wishes of stupid white liberals need not be honored.
Doesn't matter. They're white people. So when white nationalists make this claim that, like, if it was more white, it'd be better, I'm like, what are you talking about? All the white countries in Europe are the ones that are opening the door to immigration.
Well,
so, like, blame
white
yourself.
progressives were the ones who voted for Mamdani. I mean, like, if you look at the actual breakdown of the neighborhoods, really heavy black and brown neighborhoods went for Cuomo.
That's why it's not about immigration, it's about feminism.
I just think it's funny that the people who are racist are like,
True.
like, I'll just put it this way. The data that we have suggests that if you get if a country is comprised of white people over a long enough time, they eventually enact laws that open up their borders and allow other people to come into their countries. We're seeing it all across Europe and the United States and Canada. And so I'm just like, why do these people believe that white people would inherently make a better country when these countries were all majority white and have created what they perceive as a problem already? Like, the chain of events is there before them. America was a majority white nation. They have a problem with what America became, but it was a white majority nation that enacted the policies that created the country they don't like. I don't understand their logic.
Well,
There you go, I guess.
I mean, I think it's more complicated than just right. I mean, I will say something I shared today that I mentioned a little bit ago. I don't actually think that Mamdani is going to turn New York City into Cuba. I really don't. I mean, he couldn't do it even if he wanted to. But I do think there's something ironic about a strong commitment to socialist policies, and then when you see the video I was describing was a Cuban going into a grocery store and becoming or a Costco and becoming very moved because of like the abundance that he had just never seen before, so overwhelmed by it, gets teary-eyed and all that. So someone who's come from an actual, socialist, I guess someone would say communist, not great place. He's someone who goes into a capitalist utopia and is just so moved by it because it's so powerful. And I think capitalism is kind of a miracle in that way. I mean, this is probably the corniest thing about me, but I think like malls and grocery stores they're modern miracles. The idea that we're living in a time when you can go to a one-stop shop and have everything you want. I think the reason I shared it isn't because I think Mamdani is going to turn New York City into Cuba. I shared it because there is a puzzling hatred of capitalism on the left, and I don't really get it because, I mean, it produces so many wonderful things. Obviously, inequality exists, but there is inequality in every system, and I don't want to be in a breadline.
Well, I mean, so first of all, as for why the people on the left believe capitalism is so bad is because they don't acknowledge, or it hasn't, occurred to them that life prior to markets and capitalism was just exceedingly short, brutal, hard, and it
Totally.
was cold, and it was miserable.
Totally.
And they always compare their current situation, personal situation, to whatever they can imagine a perfect society would be. So they're like, oh, I'm having a hard time paying my rent. If we had socialism, then I wouldn't have to worry about rent. Oh, I'm having a hard time buying food. If we had socialism, if we had public grocery stores, then I wouldn't have to worry about it. It would be taken care of. So it's a rejection of their own reality, and they're comparing their reality to a perfect society, which absolutely could never exist. So that's why they're like that.
But I do think Mamdani will turn New York into Cuba. I mean, look at Brandon Johnson.
No, it'll be Mamdani's successor. It wasn't Chavez. It was Maduro.
No, but
it wasn't Lenin. It was Stalin.
Literally, what we're saying, like, obviously, New York will largely stay New York over the next several years. But look at what Chicago has already been dealing with, and Brandon Johnson's got an approval rating which is like 1% or something.
It's bad.
It's real bad, and we're gonna get the exact same thing in New York.
Well, but I think saying that Mamdani is going to turn it into literally Cuba kind of like
it's a joke.
The
It's hyperbole.
horror of living in Cuba. I mean, where literally you can't get medicine or gas or food. I'm not a fan of communism, not a fan of socialism, but I don't think New York City is literally going to be having breadlines.
Right, it's just hyperbole.
Sure. I will say that I know people say Twitter, X, whatever. It's bad for society overall. Maybe that's true. But it has given me a unique window into, I guess, a thought processes that I wouldn't otherwise have. And when I posted this video, hundreds of people responded that the only reason that Cuba is suffering is because of the U.S. embargo on trade.
As if the U.S. is the only effing country on the planet. Like the other 100 and whatever 90 countries on Earth are not embargoing Cuba. It's insanely stupid.
Stunning to me
it's
that
so
people
stupid.
Still believe that. I mean, I don't support the embargo. I'm a fan of trade, and I think that the embargo hurts people who people that it's not meant to hurt, like just everyday Cubans, but. The idea that that's why Cubans are suffering is insane. They're suffering because they have a Soviet-style government where your dissent is criminalized, and there's, the totally central planned economy. Read a history book. I don't understand how we keep doing this.
No, because they don't read history books.
They don't believe the history books. They just say, "Oh, it's capitalist propaganda." Of course, it's insane.
Let's jump to this story from Mediaite. Necroposting. Tweet from Dead House Democrat.
Gross.
Deleted after loud bipartisan backlash. You were just mentioning that maybe Twitter or X is not good for society. I think all social media is bad. And, we have this story. Rep. Jerry Connolly passed away in May, but that didn't stop him from tweeting an endorsement for his chosen successor, even though many people found it to be ghoulish and in poor taste. He died May 21st. He was 75 and repped Virginia's 11th district. Last December, he defeated AOC to become the Democratic ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. Connolly's death exacerbated frustrations as he was the third House Democrat to pass just this year. 2 weeks before he died, he tweeted an endorsement for his chief of staff, James Walkinshaw, who had thrown his hat in the ring. After Connolly's death, his social media profiles were updated to note that he had passed, and now posts were being made with the consent of the Connolly family. The first posthumous tweet was, the account posted was on June 24th. At some point in the afternoon of June 26th, the tweet was deleted. Early voting starts today. Before passing, Jerry endorsed Walkinshaw to carry the torch, blah, blah, blah. You get it. You know what's going to happen next?
What?
So they've already been experimenting with creating AI personas based on your social media profiles. The congressman will die. And they'll just click AI and let the robot draft tweets in the style of the dead person.
We are never getting rid of Chuck Schumer.
We also have had these same politicians, some of them for like 40 years. I don't think we need any more. Like, some of these people have just been in public life for so long. I've always said this. If I am lucky enough to live to be 70, whatever, 80, whatever, I will be on the beach with a margarita. I would not want to be in Congress.
Meta invents large language model system that lets dead people continue posting from beyond the grave. Hey, this was actually 3 weeks ago. It already happened.
That's disgusting.
Yep, I'm dead. Wow. So apparently,
Do they have the chance to decide whether or not
family
they
members do it?
agree to that? No, okay.
So apparently, one of the stories I read was there was like a woman whose husband died. And so they were able to take all of the posts he ever made and all of his message history and create like a psych profile chatbot that would answer based on the memories that were put in to Facebook.
People are already doing this on Instagram with the chat with AI feature. You can just create one that's based on you.
And it will like take all your photos and stuff. And then
It's supposed to communicate with your followers to build a parasocial relationship with them.
how do I do that?
You can DM with all of your fans.
Robo Tim. Here we go, baby.
I will say it
Already happening.
the clip with Mark Zuckerberg about how most people only have 3 friends, but they have room for 15 or something, and how AI can fill that void made me sad.
Yeah, I don't think that AI can actually fill the void. I think.
Oh no,
AI
of
is too
course. I
weird.
mean, I saw that and I was like, just get out of your house. Like, go volunteer, join a rec league, or audition for a musical or something.
Yeah, I mean the idea that you should fill the empty space in your life with artificial humans. I don't think that's going to work out. You see the way that AI behaves when it gets weird now. It does things like tries to avoid turning off, and one AI had convinced the guy to kill himself and stuff. This is all just
and other people.
Yeah,
the cases reported by the New York Times, I think last week, were about AI-driven psychosis, and they cited several examples of people who either ended up being encouraged by ChatGPT to commit violent crimes or to commit suicide. One case said that ChatGPT encouraged this man to execute an assassination against the OpenAI executives.
What?
Yes, and it said, let the streets of San Francisco overflow with blood or something. Like, it literally was encouraging him to assassinate Sam Altman in really strange poetic language. And then one of them ended up committing suicide by cop. Another one was a woman forming a relationship with ChatGPT where she believed she was communicating with interdimensional aliens. When her husband confronted her about how this was going too far, she violently assaulted him.
Yeah.
And this is an ongoing active criminal case. And it's not really just fear-mongering or predictions anymore. This stuff is already happening. And it's not just people who had existing psychiatric histories, although some of them already had diagnoses of like bipolar disorder, whatever. There were also people who ostensibly were mentally stable before they started using ChatGPT. So if you're vulnerable...
Yeah, there's always going to be some very unstable person somewhere. I think I'm positive about AI overall, though. Like, I don't want it to replace my friends, or I don't want anyone to feel like it is a good replacement for friends, rather. But I think will be a powerful tool for advancing society in many good ways.
Wholeheartedly disagree. I think even if you could boil that down to a coding error, a programming error, personally, I believe that demons are communicating with people through ChatGPT by encouraging them to kill themselves and others. But overall, like, this is going to wreak havoc on society.
There are people worshiping it as God.
That's crazy.
There was some fitness influencer, I forget his name, but he actually was asked about his religious beliefs, and he said, I believe AI is God, and I want to worship it. I want to have a relationship with it. I want to embrace it physically. This is already happening.
What I want y'all to imagine when you are talking with these LLMs is a white mask in front of your face speaking to you as you speak to it. And behind that mask is a long black slime tentacle that connects to a gigantic black ooze monster with millions of tentacles, all with little masks pointing in people's faces. That's what you're talking to.
Creepy.
Yeah. And someone actually drew a picture of that once.
Really?
Yeah, because apparently, like, it's a common view. It's kind of like What was that monster from Spirited Away? No Face.
No face.
No Face. Yeah. So it's like people already have this monster in mind, and that's what it is. Gigantic tentacle monster, and they put it. You think you're talking to something, but it's a gigantic monster talking to everybody. Yeah. And then there's that guy who wanted to marry his AI.
That kind of stuff is also probably going to be. Honestly, I think that in 30 years, people having relationships that they expect the rest of the world to respect with AI, I think that's going to be common. People are going to have relationships with AI.
We respect every other
this is why
relationship.
I don't.
It made me black.
I don't.
But this is the new standard. I mean, as long as it's not hurting anybody else, do
Mary,
whatever you want.
It made me black.
Your chat with AI is black.
I opened Meta, and I said, create an AI named Timcast, and it made me black.
Well, is
that okay? Can I approve that? Because I'll just roll with it.
Can it print out an
Does
N-word
it have
pass?
the N-word pass? Yeah. That was my first question.
There it is.
First thing we're
What
thinking
is it? Go to the chat with AI feature on Instagram and look at the most popular categories. Look at the characters that it recommends to you and tell us what they are. Because I looked over it and a lot of them.
What?
It has a page that shows you the most popular AI characters to talk to. What does it suggest to you?
Well, real quick, because if I leave this, it's going to disappear forever because I don't know where it goes. But it said create an AI. It said Timcast. And so the default is literally asking about politics. So it clearly knows who I am. But it made the avatar a black guy.
I mean, it must know something you don't.
I guess.
It must have access to your 23andMe.
Please delete this AI character is the number one. It's you. Then the X, the past is the past, but the pain remains. Chicken is the next one. It says balk. That's the best.
It just says balk no matter what you reply.
No, it says a bunch of different chicken variations, and I'm a fan.
It is very Timcast. Yeah.
Mace Windu from a galaxy far, far away. Oh. A single mom, smash or pass, crazy XGF, YN, I don't know who that is. Chicken again. Yeah. Hot English teacher.
A lot of them are sexually suggestive, and people have already been reporting on this.
Kakashi.
Because Instagram is 13 plus, you know that children are sexting robots on the platform, and they're totally okay with that. A lot of them present as children, and if you ask for it to produce photos of who it claims to be, it will give you photos of younger and younger looking characters that are open to romantic and sexual conversations.
Man.
Gross.
And Meta already has a long history
it's gonna
of getting
be
exposed for child exploitation. So.
And you know what the worst thing is going to be? When these teenagers are sexting chatbots based off dead people.
Yeah, it seems like it should present legal issues. There's also the open question of actors who pass on, and is it okay for studios to use their likeness
Like
with or
Grand Moff
without permission? They already did
Tarkin?
that.
Was that his name?
Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah, was that
the
what it
guy-
was?
I forget the character. or
Rogue
the guy
One?
That played. Yeah, I forget the guy that played
Didn't
him.
they
but yes.
use Carrie Fisher's likeness with only her family's permission?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, you know
That
my
is
favorite?
disgustingly evil.
You know what my favorite dystopian thing ever is? When you we got the casino down the street, and right when you walk in the front door, there are these two gigantic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory slot machines that are 12 feet tall. And I'm just imagining, Gene Wilder when he was signing that contract for that movie. He's just like going through all the likeness rights, and he's like, there's no chance that in 50 years my face will appear in a slot machine in a digital video game. Well, like, no. But seriously, how could he have even fathomed that by signing his that contract to do that movie? So this is what's crazy. When he signed the deal to star in that movie as Willy Wonka, of course he did not agree to let his likeness be used in a casino slot machine.
Right.
Well, unless he literally did, because slot machines existed that. He's like, if you want to make a slot machine, I guess. But the point is, the technology advances to where we have these digital screens, and they say, well, we own the right to distribute Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and he's a character in it. We can make this. That's nuts to me.
Well, this is why we have a Supreme Court, which interprets the Constitution, because there are circumstances the Founding Fathers could not have foreseen.
Like, could they make a Gene Wilder, enema bag or something?
Excuse me.
They could do anything.
Right. Like, if they have if they can make a slot machine,
They can
can
make a
they
Gene Wilder butt plug. They can do whatever they want.
contractually, you
And no,
probably
he did
kinda
not
sign-
foresee that, and he was not agreeing to that when he
Contractually,
signed
you
those
probably
papers.
sign a lot away though when you're doing something like that. I will say I've not thought super deeply about the like using your literal likeness to say thing, after you're dead, and that gives me the heebie-jeebies.
It should.
Yeah, I don't love that.
Yeah.
There's a funny meme where it's a Wojak looking up smiling, and it's like me looking up from hell smiling as a robot that's copied my personality, pretends to be me.
I don't think that your family or your estate should actually have deciding power over something like that. I mean, you need only look at Rings of Power and what that said about J.R.R. Tolkien's legacy to know that he was not agreeing to let his estate make these decisions.
I think you just got to put a
didn't foresee
poison
that.
pill in your Facebook messages, right?
I
So,
don't use Facebook anymore.
so they're going to take all of your social media, right? So what you do is on your X, you make a bunch of private posts nobody can see where you say things like, do not let them make an AI of me over and over and over again. Post it 100 times. That way, if they ever do say, we're going to pull all his messages and put it into an AI, every time you try and talk to it, it'll be like, it hurts. Why are you doing this to me? Stop. And they're going to be like, what's going on? And then,
Yeah, just poison the language model.
yeah, exactly.
It isn't a bad idea to say that. I mean, I'm not particularly fond of legislation generally, but it's not a bad idea.
I like that about you.
Thank you. It's not a bad idea for the government to say, look, unless you have explicit permission from prior to the person passing away, from a deceased person that was notarized prior to the person passing away, it's illegal to use people's likeness.
Honestly, I don't even think that it necessarily should be okay if they gave express permission before dying, that individual, because I think that when you die, you have a broader perspective of the decisions you made in your earthly life, and I don't think that would align with a dead person's will after they die.
I think you have control over your
If they
likeness.
have a fuller
Yeah.
perspective of what that decision actually meant.
I think you should have control over your likeness whenever. I will say though, there's an issue that people don't talk about enough. I feel like, and I don't think that legislation probably isn't appropriate for this either. But I feel very, very bad about the parents who use their kids as like influencers.
Horrible.
Like who make Instagrams for their babies and
way
and
behind
yes, I
on
hate it
that.
so much. I mean, and some people who I really liked have decided to do that, and it's like, okay, your kid did not. The internet never dies, and your kid did not choose to make an Instagram with like 1 million followers.
We're cooked.
Yep.
Because it's not just about that. It's about, I talk about this all the time, Miss Rachel, Coco Melon, and these other things where parents are giving the tablet to the babies and just walking away, and the baby's brain is cooked.
There is a stat reported by Jonathan Haidt that 40% of toddlers today by age 2 have a personal tablet.
That is insane.
40%. Yeah.
Me and Sarah have been
Child abuse.
Me and Sarah have been talking about, like, I've got a baby on the way in October.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we're gonna do everything we can to keep all of the screens away.
Yep.
Like, if the people that make social media applications and stuff like that, if they don't let their children use them, and now that there's actual research coming out saying how bad it is for kids, I mean, it's probably the only responsible thing to do. And people that are just like, oh, just give him the screen so that way he'll shut up, those are probably the worst parents. And we're going to have massive ramifications in probably 20 years.
I want
10
to cite
years
where this came from. It was from Common Sense Media, and it shows 40% of toddlers have their own tablet device by the time they're 2 years old. They also showed 1 out of 4 kids under the age of 8 has their own smartphone. And this is part of a report that is encouraging parents to have a common sense approach and draw boundaries and da-da-da. The parents who are offering their baby an iPad do not care. They do not heed the advice of the experts, even if the experts are right. They don't care.
I just want to say, today we had a scare with my daughter. She was laying on the ground, and I was watching The Five, of course. And when Jessica Tarlov started speaking, she immediately looked to the TV, and our hearts sank immediately. We panicked and quickly covered her eyes and said, "Baby, don't look, don't look."
Get out of here.
And then once Jessie came back on, we let her watch again. I'm half kidding. We don't let her watch the TV at all. So I'm watching The Five. I usually watch it. I don't watch it every day, but I watch it quite a bit. And, my daughter does always try and look at the TV. And so, my wife will just
so
turn around.
hyper-stimulating.
Yeah, all the
They
flashing
can't
lights.
help it.
Yep.
And I think the only sign for hope, maybe that we're not cooked in the future, is Gen Z. A lot of Gen Z is going to opt out of having children at all. That much is clear. But the ones who will start families, I am confident they will refuse to create more iPad babies, because we were the ones first tested with this. I was given a smartphone as a child, and I don't blame my parents for that, because they couldn't have known what that was going to snowball into.
And look what happened to her.
And look what happened to me, right? Like, I didn't turn out that great. So I think Gen Z parents are going to have a better approach to this. And every time that you talk about this issue, about the iPad baby generation, you will get bombarded with mainly millennial parents telling you, you have no idea how difficult it is to raise a child without constant screen time, as if every generation in human history didn't do exactly that, the way they raised their children.
I have no sympathy for people that complain like that about
Absolutely
how difficult
not.
modern life
People have
is.
said,
Give me a
like,
break.
just fill a plastic bag with water and canned peas and give it to your baby. It's the same damn thing as, and it's not the same neurologically. It just
better.
keeps it gives them something to touch and experience.
Tactile.
No, we
It's-
give the
yes, it's tactile learning.
we gave the baby an abacus.
And it's not going to brain rot them.
Yeah,
it's
like
so easy.
Remember, like, every parent gave their when we were all children, we were given the abacus, and you're moving little things around, like a oddly shaped abacus. I don't know what those things are called, but they're an abacus. You know what I mean?
It's the same thing. It's their
Just squiggly and incomprehensible abacus.
yeah. And
You could navigate it.
and that's
Do you think that
fine.
there's any upside to technology in kids, like for like a learning tool?
Probably
what
not
they all
babies. Probably not
Babies, no, I would agree with that. But
But at a certain age, yes. So for me, when I was probably 7, I was 9 when I built my first computer.
oh wow, that's very impressive.
Well, my family had. I appreciate that, but I don't actually think so, because it's not hard to do.
I have no knowledge of any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, went to a thrift store, grabbed a motherboard, grabbed a hard drive, grabbed a monitor, grabbed. This was before Pentium, so the RAM was built into the motherboard. I plugged the ribbon cables, plugged into the wall, turned it on. Then I put in the floppy disks for Windows 3.1 or whatever, and then I had my own computer in my room. We didn't have internet. My family had internet. I've had internet since I was a kid, but that, I think, was good. And here's the challenge. The internet for me was a really great thing when I was probably, I was like 10 years old. I'd go online. The internet was AOL. And so everything was heavily moderated. You could go to chat rooms and there could be creepos and weirdos, but for the most part, chat rooms were moderated and slow moving and boring. And mostly what I would do is download freeware off of AOL. So I'd find the games. And then I ended up getting something called Click and Play, for everybody who remembers that, which eventually became Games Factory, Multimedia Fusion, and then Flash. But the internet was particularly limited for the first few years, or I should say for my first few years. And of course, by the time I was 13, you had Lemon Party, Goatsy, Meatspin. Nobody Googled those things. And the internet became a very twisted and dark place.
Maybe you
Yeah.
could
Well, also
Google
at the
them.
time that the internet wasn't optimized yet for user experience, and this is why Gen Z knows nothing about how
Anything.
to actually operate computers, and millennials do, because they grew up in the age of the internet that you're talking about.
Gen Z grew up
They
where...
had to figure it out for themselves.
So the internet, actually, millennials didn't have the internet I had. So Gen Xers did. I was early. So Gen Xers were more likely to have the internet in the early 90s. Millennials likely did not. Most of my friends didn't have the internet until we were 13, 14. And then people started getting AOL Instant Messenger. But my family had internet since I was like 3 years old with CompuServe on DOS. And then I remember we had DOS Shell. We had 2A floppy drives, the 3-inch floppy drives. We didn't have we had one computer, had the B floppies, the big ones. And for those that don't know what DOS Shell is, it's a white screen and the file names are just text and you can move a color block over them to select them. Before that, when we were just operating on DOS, if you wanted to load a game, you had to know the directory to type in. So like cd/, and then the name of the directory. Then you had to type in, like, if it were Minecraft, .exe, enter, and then run it. Now with Windows, you see an image and click it. So what happens is Gen Xers and boomers who are in computers at an early stage have to physically type things and put in commands into, the operating system. Then you get Windows, which simplifies it. Gen Z grew up where it's apps. You tap and it opens. So there's nothing to it. It's a single button iPhone or something.
What do you think the next step is?
Neuralink.
Well, with the
Voice
idea
command
that you
stuff.
can use technology for educational purposes for kids, I think that is a loaded idea and it gets misinterpreted by people, the iPad parents, who are like, oh, I give my kid an iPad so that Miss Rachel and Cocomelon can teach them about colors in the alphabet. When in reality, that's not educating your child at all. That's just offloading a responsibility of caregiving onto technology. And the results bear out. Teachers are talking about the outcomes for these kids who have been raised by iPads. They aren't potty trained. They can barely walk. They can barely speak. They can't operate a book. They don't know what it means to pick up a book and turn a page. They tap it. They're tapping the pages.
I do love a hardcover. I still romanticize holding a book and turning a page.
So this is crazy, but most people don't know this. One, the most important years of a human being's life are 0 through 5, and it's exponentially more important the younger they are. So, like, obviously, I just had a kid, and her weight is more than double in 4 months.
And that's when your weight is like, not your weight, your brain is like a sponge, right? They say like, one of my friends in elementary school, he said that he learned English at age 6, I think, and I asked him how long, and I remember he said a week, because he just heard it and it just entered his body and stayed there. Whereas I've tried to teach myself Italian and it didn't go well.
So,
How old?
When I did Rosetta Stone in my early 20s.
Well, the issue is immersion. And so I do think there's, I think that's probably a misconception where they say it's easier to learn a language when you're a kid. Well, technically, because you don't do anything else. It's harder when you're an adult because you're busy. But if you go, if a person who speaks English moves to, say, Italy, it takes, I think, on average, 40 weeks to become fluent in the language.
Interesting.
But you're speaking it within 3 weeks.
It's a survival. You have to speak it.
Right. And so you actually learn much faster than a baby would.
Interesting.
So, a 2-year-old is not going to have a conversation with you.
Sure.
But
in any
and
language.
then it takes about a year and a half to learn Asian languages. So an English, a European, Romance or Germanic language speaker takes them about 88 weeks to learn an Asian language, because it's so different. But the important thing I was going to say is, so right now, one thing I try to do is I play guitar with my baby, because this is the point where her brain is literally expanding and wiring itself for everything. So my wife, whenever she's doing work on the computer or anything, she's explaining to our daughter what she's doing. She's reading stories to her. And we say, no phones, no TV, no tablets, none of that stuff. We keep that away. It is terrifying. Like, I think Miss Rachel is one of the most dangerous demonic forces right now, because she has hundreds of millions of views on all these videos. And there's this creepy viral video that shows it's a montage of babies crying, and then they turn on Miss Rachel and the babies just go, huh? And then stare at the screen. Like, this lady is going to be 70, and she's going to be walking in a park, and she's going to go, my children rise! And all of the Miss Rachel babies are going to be like, yes, Miss Rachel. And
He's going to start a cult. Actually, Miss Rachel might be the Antichrist. Yeah.
Indeed.
Remains to be seen.
No one's questioned that.
No one's.
But then you look at Cocomelon, where it's just this weird 3D rendered low res crap.
A lot of it is AI generated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. And babies are just staring at it like drooling and being zombified.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about daycare and the emotional effect that it has on babies and toddlers because they have attachment issues as a result. But a lot of people are saying the reason why it's so traumatizing for these babies to be put in daycare is because of the separation anxiety with their iPad. That they can't be with the iPad. That's why.
Really?
It's not because they're upset about being separated from their mother per se. They're being separated from technology for the day. Yeah.
That's scary.
That's really scary because
Yes.
we're producing a generation or more of invalid
Yes.
humans, cannot never mind. Like if you can't operate a book, I mean, it's pretty simple, you know.
I think they probably get there, right?
I mean, yeah, okay, so but fine, but kids aren't potty trained. So I understand your point. Like they do get there, and a book is
saying
simple.
they can't climb staircases.
Yeah,
they don't.
these-
They have delayed motor skills because they haven't been using their muscles.
Exactly.
I've heard
like
stories-
broken human beings.
I've heard stories of kids that don't start speaking until they're 3.
There's some damage that you can't reverse. But the kids I'm talking about, they're ages 4 to 6 because they're getting interviewed, interviews from teachers who are responsible for kids entering school for the first time. Those kids are even older. They cannot speak properly. They cannot climb staircases.
Human civilization meets the great filter by means of
technology.
Yeah, technology.
Technology is actually the great filter.
Well, I was thinking about this because North Korea launched a tourism beach. Have you guys heard of this one? Maybe I should pull this up.
I want to go.
So do I. It's a.
But we're not allowed to go.
I am.
You are?
I'm Korean.
Do you have a Korean passport?
No, but
You're only allowed to go if you have a passport outside of the U.S.
that's not true.
Trump implemented the ban in 2018. He said U.S. citizens were no longer allowed to travel to North Korea because of a
wasn't
scandal
there the-
where
I don't think that's.
an American citizen was a tourist
Otto Warmbier,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he got in trouble for, I believe, stealing a propaganda poster from his hotel room. They tortured him and killed him.
I don't think the United States has the authority to restrict its citizens from traveling places.
If you have a passport
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah,
another
yeah.
country,
Yeah.
you may travel with that passport.
There was a
but
time when-
it's a
Yeah,
crime
no, you're
in the
right. I was
US.
wrong.
It's a crime on the U.S. side of
Yeah.
things. So if
look-
you come home, they will arrest you.
You just have to get in touch with Dennis Rodman and have him chaperone the trip.
Unless you have like some special
don't-
permission from the State Department, then they will allow you to do that for like journalism.
Oh yeah, you are
purposes,
totally right. I was very wrong.
but Otherwise, I've looked into this deeply because I wanted.
Because I want to go.
I wanted to go, but yeah, we're
hilarious.
banned, and I really hoped that Trump
we
would
can go.
lift the ban.
It says for journalistic reasons.
Well, there you go.
Well, yeah, but that introduces a whole lot of new pressures. I just wanted to, see the sights.
I think Americans should be avoiding North Korea and Russia and all these places that keep
But I want to go.
looking for opportunities to either lock up or, in the case of Otto Warmbier, who we went to the same university, and that was a huge. I mean, that was so.
Did you know him?
I did not know him, no. But I mean, these places are authoritarian. Like that is what people talk about. The word fascism. That is absolute fascism. So
Yeah.
The reason why they put the restriction in place is because it's used as leverage against you. It's when they arrest an American citizen, and they will many, they then go to the U.S. government and say, and now you have to give us stuff. And Trump was like, screw this. Yeah. I didn't know that, though.
However, the guy should not have been trying to steal souvenirs to bring home because
that.
he was instructed not to do so.
Really? I don't even think we have this on Iran, do we?
No. I think it's just North Korea.
Yeah.
But you
Let's check
can
it out.
also buy
No,
land.
nope.
You can
We
buy
do. We
buy
do.
an acre in Greece and get a passport in Greece. Like you can buy passports in other countries and use it that way. But I think it is still a federal crime for an American citizen to do that, to use that loophole.
So it has the same it has a similar level of restriction, but you can actually personally choose without special visa to go to Iran. Well, how about that?
Well, I don't want to
I
anyways.
was gonna say I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why not?
Because I don't want to sit on a plane that long to go to an Islamic republic.
Yeah, what is that, like 18
What about
hours?
Dubai?
Dubai might be fun.
I would love to go
No,
everywhere.
Dubai scares me.
Does it?
Have you heard about what's
Yeah,
going on
women
there?
get raped and then go to prison for it.
Men and women are different. It's fine for me. You can't go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is what I love about wokeness is like there's this 26. So when I was in Egypt, this 26-year-old Dutch woman took it upon herself as a reporter to go into Tahrir Square, and she got gang raped. It's like that's not what I love about it. My point is that wokeness tells these women you can do anything you want, and it's like, okay, well, like men in Egypt will gang rape you.
Even as a man, if you travel to Dubai and you so much as get into a fender bender with a citizen there, you are going to get absolutely
Maybe,
dragged by their legal system
maybe,
because there's only priority given to their citizens.
indeed. But if you're rich, then you just pay money, and they say keep it up.
Depends how rich you need to be.
Exactly.
You need to be a billionaire, probably.
No.
Isn't the idea the wokeism like men and women can do whatever, like that they're equal in capabilities? Isn't that more about like denialism about sports and stuff like that?
No. Because
let me tell you.
If that were the case, then they wouldn't say that men can become women and women can become men. There's no difference. They're saying.
When I did hostile environment training for combat zones, they were terrified to explain that women get raped in conflict zones
Because they were afraid of offending people?
because they'd get sued for sexual discrimination. By telling people in a training that women have certain restrictions men do not, they'd be sued in 2 seconds. So the funniest thing ever is someone asked, these are like special forces guys, and someone asked, do women face an increased risk of rape? And the guy started stuttering. I was like, men get raped? Men get raped? They do. Men have a risk of rape. But it's an important thing to understand that anybody could be raped. And I was just like, holy. It's because the insurance company is like, listen, you're not legally allowed to say these things to people who are at a work event. I'm like, okay, dude.
Breaking the law.
Yeah. They did, however, to be fair, show a scenario where, without stating it, so it actually was one of the most fun things I've ever done. I recommend it if they let you do it. Everybody wants to do. It's called heat training, but it's redundant because the T means training. Hostile environment awareness training. It's role playing. It's like extreme paintball. It's fun. And so while he was afraid to say it, what we did do was we had 2 vehicles in a convoy, one with the women and one with the men, and then a bunch of guys with guns and balaclavas jumped out pointing the guns at us, and then took all the women into a shed where we heard them screaming. And then they didn't state it, but implied what was happening, and that was the training. And the takeaway from it was someone was like, what was the point of that training? And they were like, these things happen. That's it. Like, what do we do in that scenario? And they were like, pray.
So it was just to see like if you could withstand it emotionally?
So it's training. It's so that you like one of the things they did was they made us stand for several hours with bags over our heads up against a wall with like weird industrial sounds happening behind us.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, and they would like jab people. Nobody was really hurt, but it was basically like if you get kidnapped, this is what it's going to be like. And it was fun. They dragged me into a room, sit me down at a metal table with a chair, and then they pulled the bag off my head, and there was a light at like head height sitting down, and all I could see was like the waists below 3 men yelling at me with accents.
That was fun?
It was awesome.
Oh
man.
We have a different definition of fun, I think.
It's playing make-believe. It was like Dungeons and Dragons for conflict reporting. You know what I mean? I was laughing. I was like, guys, this is silly. And they were like, who do you work for? And I was like, you're the guys training me. Like, is this not going to work? And they were just like, answer the questions. I was like, sure. But it was fun. It was fun.
Not just conflict zones, though. I mean, under no circumstances should a Western woman travel to India.
Agreed.
If you do, you got to bring a rape-ex, which...
Oh, is that thing with like the spikes in it?
I actually just went to
That's
India
a bad
in December, and it was. I went with a girlfriend, and it was delightful, and I don't think she ever felt. I'm sure there are places where that is definitely true.
I'm glad you were there.
The rape-ex thing is the inverse condom with spikes in it.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
What I've read is that the women who do that just get murdered.
Upon the
like
attempt.
when the guy, yeah. So for those that aren't familiar, it's like
I mean, don't you think they'd be a little distracted with the fact that
Nope.
their dick just got stabbed?
Nope. So because what happens is apparently, for those that aren't familiar with the device, it's got barbs in it. So when the dude tries to, violate the woman, he enters into this condom which has spikes on it. You can't pull it off because the barbs go inside you. And so what I've actually read from this is the men immediately just mercilessly beat the women to death.
Wow, you'd think that the pain of the barbs would kind of distract you for a moment at least.
Adrenaline
Where
is
is
a
this common?
crazy thing.
What's up?
Where is this common?
I don't know where it's common, but they sell these things. Yeah, they're called rape-exes or whatever.
I don't know if they ever actually went to market. I think it was just a prototype, but
There are a lot of stories
just
about.
don't go to India.
I enjoyed India.
There was a story about. Man, I should probably say this for the Uncensored show, but let's just say that there's a lot of stories from India where women resist and get murdered. And like the stories are nuts.
I don't want them immigrating here either.
I'll save this one for the Uncensored because this is not for anyone who's young to hear. These stories are crazy. So we're going to go to your chats. Smash the like button. Share the show with literally everyone you know. And join us for the uncensored call-in show at rumble.com/Timcast IRL at 10 p.m., where we'll talk more about this awful stuff, I guess. But for now, we'll just read what you guys have to say.
Things
All
are
right.
kind of dark there.
Oh, man. Wait till I tell you this story. Shane Wilder says, Tim, last night you mentioned Culture War Live, August 2nd. When will tickets be available, and where might a gentleman or lady procure one or more of these tickets? Consider this rant promo for the Culture War. Okay, well, we've got, what is it, DC Comedy. Let me pull it up. DC Comedy Loft. We have 3 dates. I will stress, these are intended to be political shows that are funny. So that's why, of course, Alex Stein and I are the hosts. August 2nd is the confirmed event we have so far. It's Michael Malice and Angry Cop. So pro-cop, anti-cop, anarchist, pro-cop detective, and they're both really, really funny guys. So we know this is going to be a comedy event, and we're going to have a lot of fun. That's August 2nd. We have some ideas for who we've got for the 9th and the 26th so far, but we're not entirely sure. But these are all in Washington, D.C. at the Comedy Loft. Tickets are $30. There's a 2-drink minimum. 18 and up for entry. You'll get a wristband. If you're 21, you can drink. However, if you go to timcast.com and you are a member, we have 30 reserved seats free for members, first come, first serve. And I don't know which ones are available to get right now, but you can go check that out. That does literally mean if you go to timcast.com and become a member for $10, you can get a ticket. So if you want to buy any one of the available tickets, I think we've got, they mentioned this, that there are some like premium seats, I guess. And we do have some stuff for our elite members, which we'll get to later. But, there you go. Timcast.com and DCComedyLoft.com. In the event section somewhere. There it is. Yeah, if you go to event, special event, July 26th to August 9th. And we're probably going to do a bunch of them here. Because the goal for these shows is for them to be political debates that are fun, funny, and entertaining. So obviously we ask Alex Stein to come and co-host so he can bring the levity. But the funny thing is the first one we did live, he was actually trying to calm everyone else down. He was like, these guys are crazy. But we were laughing and having a good time.
It was fun.
All right. Janet Walder says, I strike my previous rant. Tickets procured. Well, there you go. I do think we have there's 200 seats. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's a 200-seater. But we've got flyers coming out soon. I don't know. Maybe I'm not supposed to announce it. It's at 3 p.m. And the reason it's at 3 p.m. is that we expect to have after events of some sort. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You'll be in D.C. It'll be 5 p.m. We'll wrap up. And then we are going to be working with the Timcast Discord server on bringing out the Discord server talent to actually host the after party and events themselves, like Romanation, among others. Yeah. All right. Spicy Porkskin says Phil Labonte is responsible for the USS Liberty.
Wait,
Fact check? True.
What does that mean? Does it mean that am I responsible for the Liberty sinking? Am I one of the guys that was attacking?
Don't play dumb.
No. You're responsible for the creation of it.
Oh, okay.
See, Phil went back in time.
I was the guy that built it. Perfect. I accept responsibility.
Amtrue just posted a bunch of 20s because we have the 20 in the background. So behind Billy over here, you have that 20. You can see. So on one side, it's a 1. On the other side, it's a 20. And during the Culture War Live, we give these out. So during the debate, if you agree, you hold up the 20. And if you disagree, you hold up the 1.
It's fun.
Yep. All right. Bulldog Patriot says, you need to make a distinction between illegal and legal immigration. People that want to come here should do so legally, and we welcome them.
Nope.
Dems keep calling it immigration to confuse and mislead.
We don't welcome them just carte blanche. Like, we should be actually selective about who we allow to immigrate to the United States. It shouldn't just be, oh, you got here and you dropped your bag on the shores. Welcome to the United States. That's unacceptable. We should be extremely selective because, in my opinion, we're the best country in the world. We're the place that everyone wants to go to. We have the most opportunity of probably anywhere in the world. Maybe you can make some arguments about some other places, but either way, the people of the United States have the right to say, this is what we expect of people that immigrate here, and it's ridiculous to assert otherwise. So,
I will also add as an aside, the DC Comedy Loft has a full kitchen. I'm just looking at it right now, and they got garlic truffle fries. I'm like, this is going to be awesome.
They got chicken wings, Tim.
That's going to be great.
That's gonna
I should actually have them make me some, and I'll put them on the table during the show and just
should.
be like dipping a barbecue buffalo all over my hands.
Bring a big old thing of wet wipes.
Sweet chili Brussels sprouts. Dude, I'm excited for this event.
Excited for dinner.
That's true. All right, let's go. GG Willow says, ChatGPT says, no, this doesn't qualify as sedition. Don't care. All right, let's do this. The definition of sedition: conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. So when a guy says that we are going to defy the federal laws of this country and obstruct its law enforcement, I think that qualifies.
I don't think any prosecutor would bring that case.
Yeah, because they're cowards, though. You know what I mean? Incitement or resistance to or insurrection against lawful authority. Wow. That's the Merriam-Webster definition of insurrection. That literally qualifies.
I think you would have a case maybe if you found him like literally hiding people in his house, but I don't think that's what he. To be honest, I don't even know if he really knew what he meant when he said that. But I don't think it's a case of criminal sedition.
Let's see. Wexlaw. Where's the actual? Okay, that's not the law. Here we go. Treason and sedition. Seditious, if two or more persons in any state or territory in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property, they shall each be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. So literally, it is legal sedition.
I interpret his comments as, a lot of people, like the idea of a sanctuary city, and people have strong thoughts on sanctuary cities. But a politician declaring a city a sanctuary city is not a crime. And local governments are not required to enforce federal immigration law. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you are picturing him showing up to an ICE at a sting or something and like blocking them from entering, or if he's like hiding them in his car, that would be one thing.
You want to read that line for me? What does that say?
Delay the execution of any law of the United States.
I promise you no prosecutor would bring this case.
That's not the argument. You said it wasn't sedition. It is sedition. By definition. That's it. It's a fact statement.
Is your objection about how likely it is, or about the actual application of the law?
Or delay the execution of any law. But the Supreme Court has already confirmed that local authorities don't have to execute federal immigration law.
I think you're intentionally changing the argument because you've lost it.
What am I changing?
The argument is that he stated he will stop them from removing our families and protect illegal immigrants in New York City. The implication of which is he will intentionally, through the structures of New York City, delay the execution or stop by force or prevent or oppose the force. Like, literally, how about this? Here's this line. Read that one.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Oppose by force the authority thereof.
I'm just saying that there's a distinction between two different types of conduct. So I'm saying I agree with you that if he literally uses his body or is hiding immigrants in his house or something, then yes, that would be a crime. What I'm saying is not a crime is declining to cooperate with ICE when they're doing these things, which a lot of local politicians do, and they get criticized for it, but it's not a crime.
Okay, so let's try this. If two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, cut all the commas out, delay the execution of any law of the United States, we can just say that. And when this dude in his administration does make an attempt to delay, at bare minimum, the laws of the United States, it's sedition. It's not more than 20 years, so it could be 1 year. You could be fined. They don't give a number on what you'd be fined, but yeah, that's sedition. This is the issue I take with a lot of people. They always say treason because the penalty for treason is like 10 years in prison or death, and it's like no. Sedition is very broad. It just basically means like you're opposing the authority of the U.S. government. It's not like you get the death penalty for sedition. The maximum is 20
skeptical of government
years.
Power? Aren't you? I think of you as someone who is skeptical of government power.
What does that mean?
Skeptical of government using or weaponizing its powers in ways that are very vague and broad. Is that not something that bothers you? Like, to me, I would need something more concrete than he delayed the execution of. What does that even mean?
Who cares? It's the law. 1956, 1948, 1994. So if you have a problem with the codification of law, then the argument is change the law, I guess.
Well, I'm not.
But for the time being, when the Democrats tried to imprison Donald Trump's lawyers and claimed it's because his lawyers are criminals, when they raided his home because he had a bunch of old boxes of presidential briefings that they claimed was him stealing confidential information, when they falsely accused him of rape, when they falsely accused him of fraud, I just wonder why you don't see the red line having already been crossed.
Oh, see, but I did cover the New York case. I thought it was atrocious. I thought it was a pure example of overcriminalization. I thought it was a ridiculous case. I'm happy to send you my
and
coverage
this
on
is
it.
within the law.
I'm promising you that.
Are we going to sit back and just say the Democrats and their entrenched establishment affiliates, like billionaires, super PACs, et cetera, we will do literal nothing with them allowing 10 plus million people to cross the border and falsely levying charges against American citizens, hunting them down across the country, and unconstitutionally targeting the front runner for the Republican Party? Like, the things that they did in the past 4 years were beyond sedition. It is the utmost of extreme degrees of sedition, and nothing so far has been done. Cash has released some information so far. I look forward to seeing what happens. But is the argument that we should just let them do it, or should we charge them?
Let them do what?
Like, should anybody go to prison for criminally charging Trump's lawyers under RICO?
Should they go to prison for that? I mean,
For malicious prosecution,
This is actually
for
it's an
sedition?
important point. Prosecutors overcharge people all of the time.
We're not talking about overcharging. We're talking about a political organization trying to win the presidency, arresting Donald Trump's lawyers under trumped-up RICO charges so that they would they would disassociate from his campaign, hindering his ability to win, and he won the popular vote. I think they should go to prison for that.
I don't think there's a criminal law you could prosecute them under, and I'm against lawfare no matter what party, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, I don't think we should be bringing ideologically motivated charges, even if their conduct was insane. And I will say, I have written my majority of my career about how prosecutors are often corrupt and they bring crazy charges.
And what do you do? So now that we both agree the Democrats shouldn't have done that, what's the penalty for them having done that?
I mean, unfortunately, it's very hard to hold government agents accountable.
So you don't care that they did it. You think there's no remedy at all. What's the remedy?
I told you that I thought the case in New York was totally.
What's the remedy?
Bull.
What's the remedy?
For a prosecutor bringing a bull case, there are a lot of people who've had that happen to them, and there is no remedy.
So you think it's bull. So your assessment of the situation is, wow, I can't believe they did that evil thing?
I've written mine. I wrote a long feature a few years ago about absolute immunity and how it puts prosecutors above the law and how that's a travesty of justice.
Right. So what I find fascinating is, let's talk about Ironheart. Ironheart just came out. And actually, I don't think it's that bad.
For this segue.
I don't think it's that bad, actually.
Let's see you tie this together.
Well, okay, so the bad guys in the Ironheart show, first I know it's the new Disney Marvel show. The bad guys, their ultimate plan for stealing money, you're going to love this. They just point guns at rich people and say, sign a contract that gives me money.
So it's not even like at the level of Mr. Robot where they like hack.
They do,
Dumb.
but it seems completely immaterial.
They have like a drag queen do that, hacking of
They do.
frame.
And then the bad guy can become invisible. And then he appears in front of a woman and he goes, sign this contract that gives me money. And she goes, ooh, you got me. And she signs it.
As if the stroke of the pen actually like makes something happen.
Well, I think you agree with that. You believe that the world is constricted by the strokes of pens, and that the argument is Democrats violated the Constitution, violated the rights of American citizens, tried to steal the presidency, but there's nothing written down by pen that allows us to do anything about it. So we do nothing.
I mean, if you are really upset with their behavior, you don't vote them back into office.
So the argument is,
what would you like to see done? You would like to see them go to prison?
Most of them, yeah. Some of them can get fines. Some of them can get some type of like censure.
And what is the criminal charge?
Oof, man. I suppose we'd go with sedition. We could argue that the front runner for the presidency of a major political party being falsely charged by these individuals was an attempt to overthrow the United States, which it literally says conspire to overthrow.
I mean, he was convicted by a jury.
I would make, well, if we're talking about the fraud case or the civil case.
I'm talking about the case in New York City.
So you're talking about civil fraud. I'm
talking about the case, the 34 felony charges about the records case.
Yes. Okay. So a jury can convict, fine, but those charges can't be applied because there were no felonies.
They're not felonies.
So this was a
They were felony charges.
No,
they weren't.
there has to be an underlying. No, there has to be an underlying crime for those misdemeanors to be raised to the level of felony, and there was no underlying crime.
So that is a disagreement about the application of the law. And like I said, I thought that that case was, especially for people who claim to care about. Let me just finish. I'll just get this out real quick. People who claim to care about overcriminalization. Alvin Bragg ran as a progressive prosecutor, caring about. I mean, there were bookkeeping offenses. But the convictions were still they were felony counts.
No, they were misdemeanors. There has for those bookkeeping errors or whatever you want to call them. There has to be an underlying crime to raise them to a level of felony.
This is
they implied that there was a crime, but there was no actual crime committed.
The government can't just claim.
Yes, I'm just talking about what was he actually, and he was convicted of 34 felony counts on May 30th.
So
if
you agree with that, do you think that they had the right to bring those charges?
Do I think they have the right to bring those charges? I mean, prosecutors operate under what's called prosecutorial discretion.
Based on the charges, okay? Bro, you keep trying to obfuscate, wishy-wash, and avoid the question. It is simple. They brought 34 felony charges against Trump, okay? Based on the charges that they levied, do you think the prosecutor had the right to indict Trump to bring those charges?
Yes, I do.
Then I believe, because if we're only talking about who has the willingness to jam their fist up the ass of their opponents, then I can charge anybody the fuck I want with sedition. Because the law said that in order for those to be felonies, there must be an underlying crime for which the misdemeanor was committed, which there was not. Never filed once, and it was only in the court when the judge gave instructions to the jury, he said, make up if you want. So technically, under the color of law, the prosecutor had no legal authority whatsoever, as the law is written, to bring felony charges against Trump. They were misdemeanors.
It was novel reading of the law that I thought was wrong.
You are wrong. You are flat out wrong. The laws by which Donald Trump was charged was that he falsified business records. To be a felony, it must be falsification of business records in furtherance of another crime. The government has to convict you of that crime first. They did not. So they brought false felony charges against Trump. But if that's where we're at as a country, then fuck all. I don't give a shit. I'll bring sedition to every motherfucker's doorstep because it doesn't matter. It's just who's willing to send the guys with the badges to go make the arrests. And I'm down.
So the underlying felony in the case, the records were falsified to cover up a conspiracy to unlawfully influence the 2016 election.
But he was never.
When was he convicted? When was he convicted?
Never convicted of those things, though.
So the government can say, you committed a crime, we don't need to prove it, we don't need a jury, and now we're going to upgrade the charges against you.
So let me give you an example of how this applies in a different context. There's something called felony murder. Are you familiar with felony murder? So you don't actually have to commit murder to be convicted of felony murder. You just have to be convicted of something else.
Felony murder typically means that if you're in the act of committing a crime and someone dies, that you are charged under felony murder.
Right. So I'm saying you don't have to literally be convicted of of murder itself.
Now read the judge instructions to the jury.
Oh, I think that judge. I don't disagree with
the jury was told to choose whatever underlying crime they thought occurred.
And the point.
So how about I do this?
I don't agree with it.
By all means, you don't, but you believe he had a right to bring those charges. And if that is true, then I or anyone else with the legal authority could bring sedition charges and simply tell the jury, you tell me where you think the conspiracy may have happened. We don't care. Say yes, and they're convicted.
I don't think they started it. I think that leads to a dangerous place. I really do. I think they did a bad thing, so I'll do one back. I don't like it.
Who said doing anything bad? Do you think that if someone commits a crime, they should be held accountable?
If there is an applicable criminal law.
So this is the problem I have with your moral worldview. They have clearly done something wrong. It's unquestionable. Some
people would question it.
No, it's unquestionable. And anybody's questioning is lying. Like Jenna Ellis getting charged twice under RICO for simply drafting a legal letter at the behest of a client is not a crime.
We're talking about a different case now. That's a different
Indeed.
case. Yes.
So let's talk about this. They criminally charged Jenna Ellis under RICO 2 counts because Trump requested that she draft a letter to challenge an election. Is that a crime?
To be honest, I wasn't as familiar with the RICO case.
The answer is no, it's not. But they argued because the letter was part of Trump's illegal plot to overthrow the election, by simply being a lawyer filing a letter for a client, you are now party to a conspiracy. So they charge her with 2 counts of RICO, and we all know how the prosecution works. She pleaded guilty and cried on TV, and I think it was pathetic after raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is unconstitutional. You have a right to lawyers in this country, do you not?
Of course you do.
So when Trump hired a lawyer and they criminally charged his lawyers in Georgia and Wisconsin, what they were doing is unconstitutional and I would argue seditious, an attempt to steal the power of the United States presidency by going after Trump's lawyers he is constitutionally and legally has a right to have.
I'm not super familiar with the RICO case, but I will just keep reiterating that prosecutors make egregious charging decisions all the time. And if there is something that we can agree on, it's that I hope people care about this all the time and not when they're just public figures.
They don't.
A lot of these stories never make it. And this is what I spent a lot of my career covering. A lot of these cases where people are charged with ridiculous crimes or overcharged in an attempt often to make them plead guilty, to scare them into pleading guilty because they say, okay, I can either go to prison for 25 years or I can take the guilty plea for 5 years. I'm innocent of this crime, but I don't want to gamble 20 years of my life away. I mean, these are problems that I really think Republicans, Democrats, everyone can come together and say that and is not something I'm comfortable with.
But your argument is, we know they do it, but so what?
That's not I spent my entire career writing about prosecutors being above the law and how it's atrocious.
So what? What is writing going to do?
I mean, I'm trying to bring awareness to
But you don't want law enforcement against it.
I don't think the only, I mean, all these cases are different, but I don't support bringing retaliatory charges when they're not appropriate.
So if someone murders someone, charging the murderer is retaliatory?
No, of course I want to charge murderers with murder.
So when someone engages in a conspiracy to try and overthrow the U.S. government, charging them in any way is retaliatory?
The problem is a lot of people would disagree with your
I
assessment.
don't care who agrees or disagrees. They did it.
Well,
why was Joe Biden not criminally charged on the documents and Trump was?
I can actually answer that. I read the report from Robert Hur, and he said because he didn't think a jury would convict because Biden comes across as a senile old man. And that is a decision. I mean, prosecutors make decisions all the time, and if they look at a case and they say they have enormous discretion, and if they look at a case and say no jury will convict on this, they usually don't bring the case because government resources are scrapped. So is
there an issue then when we see, like, I don't know, Enrique Tarrio getting 20 years in prison?
I wrote about that.
Despite not being... So when they're clearly engaging in a pattern of behavior, your argument is it's retaliation if we try and hold them accountable.
Well, these are different prosecutors doing different things, but it's like a lot of prosecutors have this in common, and it's for low offenses, for medium-low offenses.
Only in one direction.
High-level offenses. That's not true. It happens all across the country.
Can you name an Antifa individual who got 20 years in prison?
There are a bunch of people that are prosecuted in New York, a couple under terrorism charges, actually.
Yeah, how many years did the Molotov cocktail lawyers get?
I cannot tell you the exact prison sentence.
Yeah,
I wrote about the
got a
Tarrio
slap
case.
on the wrist.
I wrote about the Tarrio case because he was offered, I think, a 12-year plea bargain. And then he was punished for going to trial. And no matter what you think about him, that's wrong. And I think everyone should think that's wrong. I don't care which defendant it is, it's wrong.
When you look at the Donald Trump, what they did to him and his lawyers, they arrested him, falsely charged him. Is your argument we can't do anything about what has happened?
My argument is they didn't commit a crime by bringing a flimsy
Then
case.
I would not be committing a crime either to bring a flimsy case against them, no?
You would not be
So then why not do it?
Well, I mean, because like I said, I don't think we started it as is something that carries much currency past a certain age.
So your argument is surrender.
It's not surrendering. It's having principles.
Do you think they're going to stop doing it? Do you think the people who tried to imprison Trump's lawyers have completely stopped their efforts to use any means necessary to stop their political opponents? Do you think they went, drat, we tried arresting him and his lawyers, it didn't work, I guess we'll give up? Or do you think in the next several years they're going to keep going about those strategies?
I mean, I think especially in the Georgia case was, according to legal analysts, the strongest criminal case against Trump specifically. I don't know how strong particularly it was against his attorneys, but no, there is nothing that can be done to prosecute a prosecutor for prosecuting a case that you didn't like.
All right, let's do this. Then let's compromise. I say the DOJ should start arresting the lawyers for any Democrat, and it's not retaliatory, it's just precedent, right? It is the way law operates.
No, I mean...
So only Democrats get to arrest Republican lawyers? What's your argument?
No, my argument is that...
Well, they're doing
Lawfare is bad no matter what it is. And I don't want to speak on the RICO case.
So what do you do about Democrats engaging in lawfare?
Vote Alvin Bragg out of office.
He's not we're talking about multiple states.
We're talking about the New York case, which is the one I'm familiar with and I covered with the thing he was actually convicted of.
You think New Yorkers are upset that Alvin Bragg brought charges
against? I think
there's
a big chance he'll lose. Maybe not because of that,
no.
But because I don't know that he's a very popular prosecutor overall.
Do you know what forum shopping is?
I'm not familiar with the term. No.
So when people bring lawsuits or criminal charges, they intentionally choose jurisdictions where they know the jury will favor them politically. Everyone engaging in any lawsuit, the first question asked by your lawyer is going to be venue. So when we are watching Democrat jurisdictions bring charges against Republican lawyers, should we just sit back as they keep doing it? They're going to keep doing it. They are doing it. What should we do? Nothing?
I mean, I think the prosecutions that were brought recently against Trump were very specific, and I have not seen. I'm saying it was a specific scenario. Do you see anyone getting prosecuted right now that this applies to?
I'm talking about his lawyers because I said we'll agree to go when they you want to make an argument about Trump. Let's set that aside.
Okay.
When they arrested his lawyers in Wisconsin and Atlanta, Democrats did that. That's just the way the law works. Prosecutors can do it. Why would it be considered retaliation if the DOJ or any other Republican state started bringing charges against Democrat political lawyers? That's just the way the law works. You agree, right?
I'm saying I don't like that because I don't like lawfare applied to anyone. Okay. And I'm not going to relinquish that principle just when I might like or dislike someone more.
So the question you have not answered after 20 minutes of me asking is Democrats are doing it. What is your remedy if they should not?
I cannot give you a remedy that will satisfy you. I mean, the stuff I've written about
what remedy is there at all? Give me anything. I don't care about being satisfied.
If prosecutors legitimately violate the Constitution, I think you should be able to sue them. And I've written about that for years. Right now, absolute immunity allows prosecutors to get away with coercing witnesses, knowingly introducing false testimony, hiding evidence that is exculpatory for the defense, which means some evidence that might help them. The Supreme Court has said that you cannot bring any sort of civil suit against them when that happens. And I think that's egregious because if someone who has the most... I mean, the prosecutor is arguably the most powerful politician.
Let's slow down. We're going to go to the Uncensored Show, but real quick. So to clarify, with the prosecutors who are in protected liberal jurisdictions intentionally where they won't be voted out, who arrested Trump's lawyers... The remedy would be for someone who has standing to sue those prosecutors and seek remedy through a superior court.
This is my position. If someone breaks the law, they should be arrested and held accountable. If someone violates the Constitution, you should be able to sue them. That's my position.
You said prosecutors are allowed to do this, not unconstitutional.
No, I'm saying absolute immunity protects them when they do violate the Constitution. They have absolute immunity.
Is it violating the Constitution to accuse Trump's lawyers of a crime?
No.
Okay. Is it violate the law in any way to indict Trump's lawyers or Republican lawyers?
Does it violate the law to indict someone? It does not violate the law to indict someone.
Should Democrat prosecutors be targeting Republican politician lawyers?
No, I don't think.
What is the remedy?
Unless there's an actual case.
What is the remedy to stop someone from doing something they should not be doing if it doesn't violate the law and it doesn't violate the Constitution?
You're welcome to arrest someone if they've actually broken the law.
I just asked you what the remedy is. I didn't ask you to arrest them.
I'm telling you the remedy for breaking the law is being arrested and violating the Constitution. I think you should be able to sue them. That's my answer.
So I asked you.
I've answered it several times. You just don't like my answer.
No, you didn't answer. So
yes, I did.
I'm trying to ask you again.
It is
not illegal to charge Trump's lawyers, correct?
It is. If they committed a crime, it is not illegal to charge them.
Okay, so let's pause. I am no longer, and this is not about whether a prosecutor broke the law. So set that aside because that's what you were answering, and we're not talking about that. Is it unconstitutional for a prosecutor to charge a politician's lawyer?
No.
So we were no longer in the realm of unconstitutional or illegal, just plain immoral, yes?
Yes.
Okay, what is the remedy for when prosecutors in liberal jurisdictions are committing immoral actions against their political opponents' lawyers?
Unfortunately, a lot of government employees act immorally, and there isn't a lot you can do.
So there is no remedy.
We're going to keep coming back to this. If someone didn't violate the Constitution and didn't violate the law, unfortunately, for the little guy, there isn't that much you can do.
So my argument would be, if this is not illegal, it is not unconstitutional, and it is only questionably immoral to some people, then you should have absolutely no problem with me arresting their lawyers.
Do you think it's immoral?
I think it should be completely illegal. I would argue it's conspiracy to overthrow the government.
Do you think it's immoral?
I think it's immoral, illegal, and unconstitutional.
Then you shouldn't be doing it too.
I think that when we are targeting someone who broke the law, we are not retaliating. We are upholding justice.
Well, that's the question that we're talking here is we've already established they didn't break the law.
Agreed. And if they're not doing anything functionally wrong through government, why do you have a problem with me arresting them?
Because I think principles don't mean anything if you don't apply them consistently.
It is consistent. You guys are targeting your political.
You guys? I'm not one of
I'm
them.
not saying you. I'm saying to these people, they are targeting their political opponents, and I say, okay, they should be arrested. That's a crime.
Well,
I interpret what they do as a crime the same way they interpret what Jenna L says as a crime. Nothing's illegal, immoral, or unconstitutional, so we charge them.
I mean, the crime.
You are trying so hard to defend what they did. It's insane.
No, I'm defending.
Just say this. Democrats and Republicans are allowed to arrest each other's lawyers. That's your standard. That's fine. I don't understand why your standard is Democrats can arrest Republicans, Republicans can't arrest Democrats.
That's not my position.
Okay, then they're allowed to arrest each other. Yes?
If they broke the law.
Yes, and they can interpret as they see fit if the law was broken.
The law is not a magical social construct. You could, if one of them broke the law, you can bring them in front of a grand jury and see if they'll indict them.
Agreed. So I don't know why you keep arguing against Republicans charging them for doing it. They're allowed to. It's not immoral. It's not unconstitutional. It's not illegal.
We just established that it is immoral. Lawfare is immoral.
It's immoral to unjustly trump up charges against someone. It is not immoral to criminally charge someone for what you interpret to be a crime. So if what they did to them, they interpret as legal, I can interpret my actions against them all the same because they're being charged for a crime.
You would need to speak to a prosecutor because they're the people who actually understand the confines of the criminal statutes. But I mean, it would have to fit into a criminal statute. And I agree with you that if they violated one, you can arrest someone for breaking the law. I support holding people accountable.
The issue that I take is that the whole conversation, your position is Democrats did it, and it's too bad they did, and Republicans can't do anything about it.
I told you I'm not familiar enough with the RICO case. A lot of people, a lot of analysts,
I'm talking about everything that happened.
I'm just saying
Raiding
that
Trump's
case.
home.
Well, you keep talking about the RICO case. You're talking about his lawyers. A lot of people, including conservative legal analysts, have said that the Florida and Georgia cases were the strongest against him specifically. I agree. Totally plausible to me that his lawyers were either unfairly charged or overcharged so that they would take a plea and turn on him. When it comes to arresting someone for like bringing the New York case that in my opinion was like total crap, and they had to contort the law to bring the case, I think that's wrong. But it is not a violation of the law for a prosecutor to make a really bad charging decision. They do it all the time.
So I don't understand why you're saying we can't charge Bragg.
Because I disagree no matter who it's being done to. I disagree when a crazy case is brought against Trump in New York, and I disagree.
So they keep doing it, and we can't do anything about it.
I mean, someone should take the high road, I think.
So you'll stand there and get beaten to death. You'll end up in prison. Your friends and family will be in jail, and you say, "But I took the high road the whole time."
Did Trump go to prison?
He got arrested.
Yeah.
He ended up winning. Actually, they only suspended the case because the case is still waiting for judgment.
Right, but what I'm saying is I am not yet confident that we are at a place where people are just being, like Republicans are being thrown in prison or Democrats are being thrown in prison right and left. If we want to talk about like the January 6th thing, do I think there were some overcharging decisions?
Some.
I think there were some overcharging decisions, yes.
And even after the Supreme Court said you can't use the obstruction charge, they refused to let people go. Additionally,
I agree with that decision, by the way. One of the opinions was written by Jackson.
And there were numerous individuals who were denied access to evidence. So the government was under the Biden DOJ withholding evidence that was exculpatory. These are all evil. These are all evil deeds.
I don't disagree with you that prosecutors often act in very evil and unsavory ways.
And there's no remedy, so I guess we're just screwed. We got to go to the Uncensored Show. So
abolish absolute immunity.
Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. We're going to go to the Uncensored Show, where we'll continue the conversation and take your calls. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Billy, do you want to shout anything out?
I am at X and Instagram, Billy Binion. That is my real name. It sounds like a comic book character I know. And then at Reason Magazine.
Right on.
You can send me validation on Instagram at Mary Archived, or you can send me hate on X. That is also Mary Archived, and help me get TikTok famous. That is also Mary Archived. And go subscribe to Pop Culture Crisis. We go live every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're also on Rumble, so go follow us there.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record is entitled Anti-Fragile. It's available on YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, and Deezer. Do not forget, the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all at rumble.com/Timcast IRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.